Here's a few words from our sponsors. They're all top-notch people. We're glad to have them aboard. Make sure you support them. That's what keeps us going. Being the low-tech guy I am, there's one thing I've learned to embrace with technology, and it's my OnX. I used to carry maps and GPS when it finally came out and stuff, but the OnX has eliminated that because I've got my GPS in my phone now with my OnX app. I can mark everything in that. It's helpful that I can show other people by putting a pin in if I want to send somebody to a place. Being a guide, that's important, I can give them the pin, put it in there, I text it to them, whatever. So if you want to get your OnX, get your Big Woods Bucks code, BWB, and get you 20% off, but I highly recommend it. Give you a little update. Skinner Sites. We all know they're the best site going, but it's a great company because Andy and the crew there are innovative, and they're always thinking up either new models to make a site for, improve the sites, making mounts for scopes, and now they've come on with their own line of scopes and red dots. Whatever Andy does in the company, it's top-notch, first quality, and they stand behind everything, and we're glad to have them as a partner, and we hope you'll try their sites, and you can trust your life with those, and they're going to get you the game. So get your Skinner Sites, and you can trust me that you're going to be glad you did. Just wanted to talk a little bit about minus 33 in the wool they have, which I believe is best wool going, whether it's base layers or your socks or whatever you're wearing. You got to have wool. I've been stressing that for people for years, to wear your wool, whether it's the outerwear or even your base layers and socks. I've been to the tour of the plant, see how they make their socks, and it's quality, the fit is right, and they're going to be long-lasting. I've got socks I've had now for several years, and they look like I'll have them for several years more before they even think about wearing out. So I trust my life to wool, and you can too. Minus 33. All right, back to the podcast. Welcome to the Big Woods Bucks podcast. I'm your host, Hal Blood, and today we're out here in the lower Adirondacks, New York, at Joe Donito's house. He's letting us use his studio here, his man cave, to do some podcasting with our friends out, the Adirondack hunters. So here with, of course, my co-host, Good Lee Shands.
Happy to be here.
And we got Tom Massett.
Hi.
And Roy Hart.
Hello.
And Jim Massett.
Good to hear you.
Yeah. They're going to be good to hear you, Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we thought what we'd do in this podcast is reminisce with these guys about, they're some of the old school Adirondack guys that go way back, because they're like a generation older than me, except Roy's a little bit older than me. But so Jim and Tom are like the old post-Sentinels from way back in the
We're dinosaurs.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it that way.
Well, it's true, though.
Yeah, well, I hate to put it that way, but, when you get older, we all become a dying breed, you know what I mean? We're not going to live forever, right?
Right.
We're going to get called home, and that's the end of it, right? Someday.
Right.
But hopefully we all got a few years more in us, right?
Well, I don't know. It's going to be very few for me.
At least one more season.
Yeah, well, you guys still look in good shape to me.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So, but anyway, let's go back and talk about, when you and Jim, you and your brother Tom got started first, because you were probably,
yes.
Was there many people hunting back in the Adirondacks and walking
they had,
back?
when I went back there, it was just after the war in 1946 or 47, and there was still just a trail there. But I think in 1947, Gould Paper Company decided to put a road back in there and do some logging. And the whole part of the difference was, Tom probably remembers, they had like the first, I think it was like about 8 or 9 miles was private property, and then the state owned a part that they called the Moose River Plains. And, of course, you always wanted to hunt on the places where they had more open territory. But anyhow, Tom probably remembers the first years we had there, we tented. And I can remember they built a log wall up the side and then just put a top over it like a tent, and that was what we stayed in. But it was quite different.
So did you walk into that, or could you?
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
They had the outfit. The first one I went into was, I think it was probably around 10 and a half miles back in. We walked all the way. And
You walked in 10 miles?
Yeah, it was camped right on the Moose River, Tom. Do you remember the place they had on the Moose River there? The outfit?
It was before my time, Jim.
Yeah, in fact,
Yeah.
Roy's father, remember Roy's father and my father guided for a number of years, but that was later.
They were nuts.
But there were no chainsaws at the time. Everything they cut up and split up was crosscut saws and axes. That's what they had.
Saw, yeah.
Yeah, but it was a great experience. I'll never forget it.
What were the rules back then? Like you mentioned, you stacked up logs. Could you guys bring in a crosscut saw and cut logs, or did you have to use fallen timber?
Couldn't cut anything live. Yeah, anything you used had to be dead. Now, if you cut a tree that big around, they'll fine you for it. So,
All that land, most of it was owned by Gould paper that
right.
we hunted.
All the area we hunted was
Yeah.
Gould paper, except
And
that one part that was in the
What
Moose
year
River
did they put
Plains.
the road in? 1948 or so?
Yeah, 47 to 48, 49, they put the road in. And it just kept going further and further back because Gould Paper owned more company or more territory beyond the Moose River Plains. So they had both places to cut. But they had to get permission to go across the state land, which they did.
I think they actually got permission because of the big blow in 1950.
Right.
The big hurricane knocked down all kinds of trees in the Adirondacks.
Hurricane Hazel, right.
And,
they closed the woods for 2 or 3
Yeah,
years.
didn't they get permission to cut land on wood on state property?
They
The
did.
down stuff they were able to
Yeah,
cut
anything that was down.
because it was a fire hazard, and they were afraid that the whole Adirondacks would
It caught fire, the whole place had
They
burned.
won't let you do that anymore.
No.
So when was the first year you hunted, Jim?
1951 was the first year I went in, and my father had bought a 351 Winchester. I wish I had it today. It's worth a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, I had that 351 Winchester, and I can remember hunting with it, and I shot at a deer that I never touched, and that was my first year. I never killed a buck until 1952.
How old was you in 51?
51, I would have been 14.
14?
Yeah.
So you were young. You were 11.
Yeah, I was a little bit early. Anyways, it was the first year that you had to have a what we call it, a training session. It was the first year they had the training.
NRA
to
course.
NRA,
Yeah.
safety course.
Safety course.
They had
It
it
was the
way
first
back
year they
then?
had that, yeah. And so I naturally took the course. But anyhow, my father was good enough to take us hunting then,
Yeah.
even though we weren't old enough to hunt. But
I remember you shot that deer and you hung it in the crotch of a tree. And
that was 52.
that
I
was
shot the
52.
first one. Yeah, hung in the crotch of the tree. Went to get it out and couldn't get it up high enough because there was a whole bunch of the guys when I shot it, and they put it up in the crotch of the tree. And Tom and I were there, just young kids, trying to get this thing out of there, and it had to hang there for another week before we got it out. But it was different.
Was your first one a good one?
No, it was 8-pointer. When they were making a drive, and the deer come right up behind me, and I ended up shooting it. And I can remember it was funny because it was so close, and I shot, and the deer jumped right up in the air. You know how they do every
Yeah.
once in a while. It just jumped right up in the air, and he only went a little ways, and he died. But
Did you shoot him with that 351?
that 351, yes, I did. Like I said, I wish I had it today. But anyways, my brother at the time had a 32. I had the 32
Where's
first.
that gun?
My brother wanted it, so I ended up with a 351, and he had the 32. So anyways, I
It's
had
upstairs.
I had
No, I
3 of
brought it down
those.
here.
Oh,
In fact, I could show you the gun.
There's
there.
that
Yeah,
three-
it's
there's-
the one out
Roy
of the
brought
case.
a 32 Rem like Jim is talking about that he had here.
yeah, I shot my first 3 bucks with this.
It's the one with the big barrel.
Yeah, he's
Sitting
got it.
right there in
The
the
Model
corner.
8 Remington.
Yes,
Yeah.
Model 8.
Yeah.
That's
I had,
it.
a
Nice.
30,
There.
I had a 35 Remington, first one I bought. This was a 32, and this was a little earlier model.
Oh,
That's right. This
That's-
was
Next
what
model
they call
had
the Model 8.
pistol grip.
Model
Yeah.
8, yeah.
And the Model 81s had a pistol grip, and they were a little bit newer model, and they shot the same, though.
Yeah.
But we had a great amount of deer we
That-
killed with these. Almost everybody had one. Remember, Roy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where'd this one come from, Roy?
That was my dad's.
Oh, this was your father's.
Yeah,
The one he had originally, I thought, was a Browning one. The Browning he had.
that's it right there. Well, he might have.
No, he had the
But
Browning with the. In fact, he bought it back from Belgium when he
Yeah.
came out of the service. You remember that?
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah,
that
well,
got
this
stolen.
is the
Hold
this
it
one.
up closer to
This is the one he sent back in pieces.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah.
I see. Okay, all right. I never saw
They
this.
were reliable. That gun was
Yeah, it-
reliable for a semi-automatic.
It cycled
They
so
were.
good.
Yeah.
Yes.
I did a throwback Thursday on that a little while ago and said, I know guys in Maine that still hunt with those. That's what they call a blowback or recoil action. Those things jam less than the new gas operated
Right,
ones
that's
too.
true.
Those
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
they're a little bit heavy, but they work good.
Right.
That's going to make a great throwback
It
Thursday.
never jams.
Yeah,
Never did
is
on
that
me.
right?
My
Yeah.
Odd 6, my carbine Odd 6 used to hang fire all the time.
How
Yeah, I had a
about that?
35 rim that I bought. I worked all summer to buy that gun,
Yeah.
and cost $75. They bought it off of Stoney. He bought it brand new.
Oh,
Stoney was a friend of my father's, an old timer, and he had a squeaky voice.
Yeah,
Roy
He was
tell-
the best, that guy.
he was a great
tell
guy.
a story about Roy when you seen him on the road. He didn't see you.
Oh, yeah, we were hunting back by Cairns Farms, and we had a tent. The first year we hunted there, there was deer sign all over. Well, we went back the next year, and just happened to have, it was the first, I think it was like the first day of the season, and we had snow, and that doesn't happen very often. So I had to leave before everybody. When you're young, you know, you get out there like crazy. So I took off, and it was still kind of dark, and I got to a spot where I was going to have a watch. About a half hour later, all of a sudden I hear somebody talking. I said, what the heck? Somebody's
himself.
walking up the road talking to himself. It was Stoney, and he's saying, "Where'd they all go? What happened to them?" He didn't see any deer tracks, so he thought they were all gone. It was a fresh snow, you know, and he was talking to himself. He was a character, that guy. He was a
He
character.
was a lot of fun.
He didn't have. He had one daughter, so he treated us kids like you and
Yeah,
Butch and
like-
I, when we were young, like it was.
Well, I lived
we were
right
his
next door
sons.
to him, you know.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
He kept me in fishing tackle. I'd lose fishing tackle. He'd give me fishing tackle. I needed 22 shells. He'd give me 22 shells.
He was a great guy.
Great guy.
But the woods in them days, at least when I went in, the logging was going on heavy, and boy, that made all the difference on a deer.
Sure.
As an example, you come home on a weekend, there'd be cars lined up with deer. They had deer check. You just stated check. They'd be lined up for a half a mile waiting to get in the deer check. Hey, you won't see hardly a deer on a car.
They don't even have them anymore.
No,
I think the difference was then the logging versus the logging today. You used caterpillars in them days. They didn't have these big skidders.
Right.
And they cleared the trails out a lot better because they couldn't get sticks caught in them tracks and throw a tread, you know. And of course, these skidders, they're so wheels are what, so 5 feet high and chains and
Yeah. I never thought
so
of that. It
the
makes
woods
sense.
were cleaner and they were more selective. There was no clear cutting in our day,
no, it's true.
so
Yeah.
I'd rather have logging than not to have logging at all.
Right.
We find that there's a lot more deer in areas where it's logged.
Funny, Tom mentioned about the fact that they had these deer checks were coming down one day, and I had a 52 Hudson Hornet, and I had a buck on each fender, and there was a guy standing out there in the road that would flag you in if you had deer on the fender, so you could see them. So there was so many people there, and we waited in line for a half an hour just to get to where they check. And I said, I'm not going to stop. So we got right up to the guy like that, and he see me, pull in there, pull in, zoom. I took off like a jet. I say, couldn't chase you. I mean, there was so many cars, they could never got out. So we just went home, never checked those.
So what'd you do? Go get a couple more after that?
We tried to.
Yeah. Statute of limitations has run out now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we did. We hunted quite a few more.
Al and I've discussed, you talked about how it was just the right amount of cutting. Like back in the 80s when I first started going to the North Woods, they were still cutting with cable skidders and there were smaller operations, but the deer hunting in Maine was so good in the 80s when they started opening up northern Maine. But we have just the opposite. In Maine, we have too much over-harvesting now, and you guys could use a little bit of that.
Right.
If you could find that healthy medium, that'd be perfect,
Well,
right?
trouble of it is the state owns most of it now, and
Yeah, they buy up all.
there's something wrong with the state. I don't even want to get into that. But I mean, you walk by millions of dollars of lumber every day that you can't touch, and
The wind blows them over.
yeah,
Either that or
and
they
then you
die
can't
of old
even
age.
you can't touch that either.
Yeah, that's true.
Firewood or something, they don't even let you do that. That big blowdown in Racket Lake that year, the locals wanted to go up and harvest it for firewood. The state said no. They just left a mess in the woods.
Yeah, let it die.
Looking back to your question, Hale, about the early days, they had a camp on Governor's Brook. They built one. What year would that have been, Jim? 1950 or late 40s? And then they had a camp up Red River, which was a logging camp. You were in that camp. I never was in it. Dirt floor.
Yeah, the one on Red River, they called it the dugout. What they did was dug a plaza out of a hill, and they put a few logs up there, and then just put a top over it. And
Full of snakes.
yeah, full of
Full of
snakes. My father
snakes,
says the
that's
most
nice.
uncomfortable place he was ever in.
Jeez.
So one time, Dickie Hart, his uncle, and his other uncle, Don, and their buddy, Joe Spurchie, went up and do a little beaver trapping in the wintertime. And so they went up to this camp called the Dugout. They only had one pair of skis and one pair of snowshoes for 3 guys. That doesn't work too well, the snow in March, So they sent the one guy up to the camp ahead of time when he got off of the road where they plowed it was fine, but when you got off the road to get back to camp, about a mile, and they said, Joe, go up to camp ahead of us and start a fire and put on some tea. We'll have some tea when we get up there. So by and long, they get up there, and Joe's sitting on a rock. What are you doing, Joe? I can't find the camp. What do you mean you can't find the camp? Well, it was right here. It's not here anymore. Well, somebody come in and burn the camp down.
During the winter, never knew it. Yeah, we never knew.
So there was what was called the old halfway camp. The original settler in there was a guy by the name of Wellington Kenwell, and he set up in the Moose River Plains, and he took sports in there. It was quite an operation, horse and wagon, and halfway camp was his halfway to get back to his outfit. So the guys went that night then, and they went up to the halfway camp, and they put a sign on the bridge of Red River. Ray and his father, Brud, were coming in. Camp gone. We're up to the halfway camp. So luckily they seen it at night, and so they went up there, and they went and talked to Wellington Kenwell's son, which was, what was his first name? Gerald Kenwell. And he bought it off of him. So when I started hunting, that was the camp we hunted out of.
Yes.
But as the family got bigger, and added
It was
additions
12 of
on.
us hunted out of that one camp there. We spent a whole week there.
How big was the camp?
What was it, 15 by 20? Put an addition, put 2 additions
Two
on it.
additions on, because the family
15 by
kept getting
20.
bigger.
12 guys.
Yeah.
That was cozy, huh?
My dad used to be the cook. This old Stoney'd get up early in the morning. Hey, Ray, you going to put the coffee on? Oh, we got the coffee on. You going to get up and cook breakfast? Yeah. And he'd get up. We called it French fried eggs. He'd throw a couple pounds of bacon.
Have that much grease in the bottom of the pan and put the eggs right in there. They were French fried eggs.
Yeah.
Oh,
you had to
man.
scrape them off.
All he wanted to do was get out hunting. He didn't want to cook.
I know it. He was into the hunting.
Yeah.
That's how the two of them ended up breaking up, and they ended back into the 8.5 miles in.
Yeah,
And
Tom, I was a little bit mistaken there. I said that was the dugout. The dugout was the first place that they had
on 2
was
miles.
By Governor's Brook.
Oh, that was
place. The place that was up the river was a logging camp that they had. And
Yes.
the loggers left the camp there, and we were able to rent it there for a few years till they burned it down.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm sorry about that.
But then Ray, his father was named Ray, and my father was named Ray, decided to go back in 8.5 miles. My father used to walk out to go to Mass, and he's, strict Catholic. 8.5 miles out on a Sunday and 8.5 miles back in.
Yeah.
He never missed a Sunday.
That camp was something else. I remember my dad taking me in when I was a kid. We were going in to trout fish. We went up after work, got up. By the time we walked back to that camp, it was dark. And we got up to the camp, and the door was laying on the porch.
Oh.
And I looked inside, and there's animal crap all over the place. Well, they had a sleeping quarters, and they had a kitchen quarters where there were 2 bunks. So we cleaned all up. Dad propped the door up against the opening, and we went to bed. Well, I'm a kid. I'm scared to death there. The bear was in there. There was bear shit in the middle of the floor. So he props the door up there, and he goes to sleep. He's the only one that's got a flashlight. I didn't even have a flashlight. So I'm laying there wide awake in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden, whoa! I heard that door hit the floor. Now I'm shook, and I'm trying to wake him up, and he was kind of hard of hearing from the war. And I'm shaking and shaking. Finally, he wakes up. My heart's going 100 miles an hour, and he's, Dad, there's something happening. And so he takes and shines that flashlight. There's this big raccoon standing in the middle of the table there. And my heart's going thump, 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 thump. Oh, I was scared to death. Then, the next morning, we walk about 3 miles to the Moose River. We're going to go fishing. I'm just a kid. I'm anxious to go. There's a canoe there. He turns it upside down. He gets this kettle of tar out from underneath, starts a fire to heat up the tar, patch the holes in the boat. Every 50 yards we had to stop and empty the boat and then go a little further. He was nuts. He was going to catch some fish.
Something else. Roy, tell him about the time. I'm pretty sure it was you. You were hiking back in and you got tired, and your father was. I'm not sure if it was you, but it was one of you guys. Your father said, "You're tired, huh? You can play all day, but you come back in the woods."
Same trip.
It was okay.
Same trip, and he took off.
He said,
Yeah.
"Yeah, come on, we'll play tag."
Yeah, and he took off. See ya. Boom. Now I'm walking up the road. I'm just a kid. I'm scared here. Then he'd jump out. You know, that's what people do. Yeah. But he was bound and determined to go fishing. I couldn't believe that canoe. That thing must have sat there for 10 years. It looked like Swiss cheese.
So as I said, the Gould Paper Company owned the land, and they logged various ways all the way back to about 20-some miles, I think. But we used to rent for Gould Paper just a spot that the camp sat on. That was our lease.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't want a bunch of hunters in there. They were afraid of starting fires and so on. So then they made us divide into big leases. So we had about 4,000 acres, Jim.
Yes.
Called the untamed Club. Matter of fact, I had one of the signs at home. And there were other ones, Lost Book Club, Triangle Club, etc. And it was posted. We had to post it, satisfied Gould Paper. So one day, on a Sunday, we're walking out. I was with your father. And his name was Ray Hart. Oh, you see some hunters coming in. So Ray says, "How you doing, fellas? Good. Where are you going? We're going back in your hunt." Well, you know, it's posted on both sides of the road. Yeah, I know, but we got permission to hunt the Montom Club. Oh, yeah? Who gave you permission? Ray Hart gave us permission. Really? I'm Ray Hart. How do you do, Mr. Hart? He couldn't do nothing but laugh. Go ahead, hunt, he said.
Yeah.
So what was the woods like when they were logging? It was probably like original logging, was it?
Yeah, they leave the tops. They didn't take the tops out. You know, like today, they take everything out.
Yeah, but I mean, what kind of wood was it?
Oh, it was hardwood and softwood too.
It was maple and beech they took mostly.
Yeah.
And then they did take some softwood. There was some spruce and not very much pine.
Yeah.
But
no. In the early days, they started from North Lake, Camp 8. They came from Forestport up to North Lake, and then they had called the Summit Road up over Ice Cave Mountain, all the way down to Camp 9 and the Moose River, and floated it down.
I got you.
You can still see the old mill there at Moose River. The bridge comes across Route 12 and 28. Go across, but the last logs they did there was 1950. And I don't know what year Gould went out. I think they sold it to the state in about 62.
Somewhere around
Matter of fact, we built a brand new camp. The old halfway camp was just too small, and we built a new one across the halfway creek. And we got a lease for 1 year, and the state burned it down.
The next year, never told us they were going to. Thought we could sell
After all that work.
Yeah. 1 year we hunted out of it.
So that's where you were originally hunting.
Moose River Plains, yes.
Between there, North Lake and up. Yeah.
My father used to huckster up at Inlet there, and he used to drive from Syracuse and huckster.
You know what a huckster is? Explain what a huckster is first.
Okay, they'd bring like all kinds of vegetables up for the people in the woods to buy. So he used to drive the truck up there, and that's where he met my mother. So he started hunting up there. Was it right around that time? That must have been right afterwards.
Yeah, he lived in
that was in 1933.
It was the Adirondack grocer.
Yeah. There were no big grocery stores in them days.
No
Still isn't much up
supermarkets.
there.
Huh?
Still isn't much up there.
No.
Now
Roy's
built a brand new place up there. When you going to move up there, Roy?
I hope by spring at least. Yeah, I'm getting close. I've only been working on it 8 years, so. But it's only 5 months a year, you know.
Yeah.
When hunting season comes, I don't do much work.
Yeah.
Well, hunting can be work sometimes, but you don't act like it's work.
But you say that logging, I remember we went back to Cairns Farms, and we went back one season to explore because it was the last place they logged. And holy cripe, there was deer sign all over the place.
Yeah.
So we went back in there, and it was about a 7-mile walk, and we set up tents, and there was, like he said, there was about a dozen of us hunting there. Geez, and I know, in my mind, of being younger, I had to get back there to Cairns Farms. I had to get back there. Geez, And I crossed a lot of good hunting areas just to get back there because that's where we hunted.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, after a few years, I realized, boy, there's less and less deer and it's getting kind of tough. And I finally realized as I got older that we shot them all. I mean, there was only 12 people and all within walking distance of this tent, and we shot some nice bucks. Well, these guys did.
You did.
I was
too.
just kind of following along, listening to the stories, and it gets you going. But a lot of things happened there. One time I went in with my Uncle Ken on a Thursday night, and it started snowing on our way. We didn't even realize it until we got in and took my hat off, and there was snow on it. Oh, boy, it's going to be great. So we were tented, and there was this water hole. We'd walk out to the trail, and there's a water hole right there. So the next morning I went out, and to make a long story short, I kept jumping this buck, and my father, he was back in the tent. Well, at night when we got in with my Uncle Ken, we had a polyethylene setup, and a bear went through the side of it, and he ate everything. The only thing he didn't get was we had a sleeping quarters. We had a board across and straw and a cover, and we buried our onions and potatoes in there so they wouldn't freeze. Well, the bear, he bit right two tin cans like you shot him with a gun. I mean, and ripped them apart. He ate everything. Yeah. So now, Friday comes, a few guys come up. Well, Sunday, everybody leaves, and it's just me and my dad. Well, a Monday, then a Tuesday, and I went out and I started jumping this buck, and I want to get my dad because he's a lot better at it than me. So I headed back to the tent. I was about 1.5 miles from the tent. Well, I got right to the water hole. Being a kid, I had this quirk. There was a big bowl-shaped ridge, and I'd always bring my gun up and check that ridge up. Geez, and I brought my gun up. I go, holy crap, there's a deer. I look, geez, I think it's got horns. So I put the gun on, I shot, and the deer took off. I missed it, ran up to this peak and looked at me, and it's got about a 23-inch spread. Holy crap, so I bring my gun up, and I breathed on the scope. I'm trying to figure him out, so I got his image, and I got him on this. Boom, I shot him. Whoa, down the ridge he fell. Well, my dad, he's in the tent, so he comes out. So anyway, we hang the deer up, and I hiked all the way out of the woods, and I had my gun in the deer cart in the case. Find out the closing went through on his house. He lost his wife, my stepmother, that year. So I walked all the way out, got a case of beer. I walked all the way back in, and I took that cart and I pushed it right up to the wood pile so it wouldn't tip. My gun was in there. So I went in, and he was in his underwear, and he wasn't feeling good. He was probably feeling sad. And I talked to him a little bit. Well, I had to go outside and look at my deer. So I go outside, and I shine the light at the deer, and all of a sudden I hear a little noise to my right, about 20 feet. There's this bear laying there. And his eyes glowed like you see an animal at night. So then I go inside, and my father was kind of hard of hearing. I had to say it 3-4 times. Dad, there's a bear outside. What? I said, there's a bear outside. Oh, bullshit. And I go, there's a bear outside. Well, then he realized I was serious. So he says, get your gun. I said, I can. It's laying right next to him. Because I pushed my cart up to the... So he fumbles around. He hands me his gun and a bullet. I go, Dad, you're going to shoot this bear because I'm not going to. I said, I shot that buck this morning. I'm pretty happy. You're going to shoot this bear. So anyway, we cut the polyethylene and rolled a log in it to pull it tight. So he was a little shorter than me, and I pushed that polyethylene open, and I shined the light right on him. He goes, where is he? I go, right there. And he goes, oh. He didn't realize he was so close.
Laying right there.
And he flattened him out. And a couple days later, we went through the gate, and the biologist grabbed this bear. He said, this bear should have weighed at least 100 pounds more than it weighs right now. He said they checked it. They said it was 15 years old, and the taxidermist found a piece of tin, so it was the same bear. He said, that bear, when you went to sleep, he'd come in there and had his way with you guys. But he flattened him out. The bear weighed 299 pounds.
Wow.
And he said it should have weighed 100 pounds more.
Wow.
Did he ever figure out why he wasn't? Did he have anything wrong
He
with
had
him?
one broken canine tooth. He was old.
Just
old,
yeah.
beat up and old.
He was.
He was figured an easy meal, and that's what he got in the tent. He tore that place apart.
They can make a mess.
Yeah.
What did you guys do for heat? Did you lug stoves in there?
Yeah, we had wood stoves.
You did? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was a sheet metal worker, so I made most of
Oh,
our
yeah.
stoves.
He made some nice
sheet
ones,
metal.
too.
Yeah, beautiful stoves. It was nice. Oh, we were comfortable. We worked at it, but we had nice setups.
remember one of the first times I was in there during the hunting season. We had a place that was on the Moose River. Tom, remember where they had a place where they used to dam up and let the logs go down through when a spring came. In fact, those logs are still jammed in the river. You can still see
Some
them
places,
today.
yeah.
Anyways, about 10.5 miles back in, and I can remember they had a tent set up with just like they had log sides they put in this thing over the top of it. Well, they used bunks, and all they did was took pieces of conduit and strung canvas in between them, and that was what they slept on. Well, I was just a little guy, and they said, well, climb up there with somebody. And I got up there, and I was like a wedge cut right in between them guys. I never slept all night.
Oh, yeah, some of those places were very uncomfortable.
That was around 1949, I think.
Yeah. So if you went in there with, like, if there was 12 of you hunting that year, would everybody get a buck back in them days?
They tagged the buck. They didn't always get him.
Yeah, we shot him for him.
But you'd kill like 12 bucks.
Yes,
that's
true. 12
One year,
bucks,
what was it? $23 and a couple of bears we got between the two tents.
Camps. There,
between the
for
two
a few
tents,
years, one camp might get $21, another one might 18. Next year it might flop around. One was 5.5 miles.
Started tapering off after we shot them all.
So
you guys were real killers then.
That's right. That's funny.
40 deer.
Well, there was a lot of young guys that were just that was their. They wanted to get a deer,
Deer in there now.
Yeah.
Most of those years, I would see $15 in a season and hunt every weekend plus a week. So I'd see $15 in a season and probably 75 deer, 80 deer maybe. Yeah. And my father, one year, Tom, didn't he see 100 deer? I think he kept track every day.
Yeah, it's nothing like that now.
No,
some are the same deer. They're not all different deer. But the point is, there was a lot more deer in there. Yeah, and the feed is what keeps them there. And of course, we didn't have many coyotes either. First time I remember seeing a coyote was 1954. Your brother and I went up there and Easter vacation. Yeah.
Hey, Al, I just want to take a minute to talk about our wool gear. Our Big Woods Bucks wool gear it's the best value there is on the market. We have 100% virgin wool clothing, whether it's our packs, pants, jackets, whatever. The virgin wool it's the natural fiber from the sheep, and it wraps into a tight thread. That's what makes it waterproof, pretty much wind resistant, and comfortable to wear. It's quiet for hunting, especially in the big woods. You can't find anything better than wool clothing. So we have ours. It's all made in USA with all U.S. accessories and everything. We've got years of experience guiding and it's thought that's going into this stuff. So we've tried to keep the average hunter in mind and kept the price point at where people can afford it. We hope you enjoy it. Wear your woolies, caught in his death.
They had a fellow that was the head of the game department here. His name was Bill Servinghouse. So they wanted to go in and check and see how the reproduction rates were in a deer. So they went there one time in the springtime, and they shot every deer that they could possibly see. There were deer laying all over the place.
When they were all bunched up
early
in their wintering grounds.
They would cut and check the femur bone. I'm sure you guys are aware of that to tell if a deer starved or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they check the femur, and the femur is like a candle wax. It's good, but if it's kind of
pink,
like Jello and pink, it's the deer is starving. So all they did was shoot all these deer, and a lot of them they never even trailed down. All they did was just the ones they got were really close to the place where they shot. They would check that femur bone to see if there was anything, and they left them lay all over the woods. What a stink!
That seems like it's a little stupid to do that.
Real stupid.
Oh boy, the hunters were really mad at the state at that.
Yeah, what they always did in Maine was if you found a dead deer in the winter, the biologists would want to check in to see the
great
health
idea.
of it.
Sure.
They didn't shoot deer to find
That made
that
more
out.
sense.
Yeah, they killed them
a
to
bunch
check.
of them. I don't know. I think after that, Tom, I don't know if they really recovered because they shot a lot of the old does that used to bring the younger deer up into the wintering areas, and they just didn't. And it was funny about wintering areas. You probably have the same thing, Hell. Some deer will pass each other going to wintering areas. Some go down this way, some go up that way. It's really strange.
We did a podcast a while ago, and people doubted it, and they said it wasn't right. But the state put tracking collars on some does. They had a doe that was living up around Spencer area, just below Jackman, and was going clear down to was it Parkman or somewhere down?
down that way, Sangerville, down
Sangerville.
the deer yard.
Yeah.
How far distance?
75 miles.
Yeah.
And crossing major rivers to get
Crossing
there.
the
No
Kennebec
kidding.
River.
Is that
and
right?
and it would go with its fawn. They had it on the GPS tracker that it left the deer yard and headed north. And it went 20 miles and it spent a month while she was having her baby. And then when the baby got big enough to travel, she proceeded along
back.
north,
Wow.
swam the rivers, and ended up, it's about 10 miles south of Jackman, in about 5 miles on this logging road in that area, and spent the whole summer. And then in November, she headed back because she
Same thing.
needed more time to get there before the snow.
How about that?
Imagine.
Yeah.
About that.
Yeah. We had one that they trapped in Moose River Plains there that traveled 50 miles, they figured, because somebody had, they put streamers in her ear.
Yeah.
And this one fellow had
Yeah, I
seen that
shot a
deer
couple
down there.
bucks with streamers.
Anyways, it was 50 miles from where it was. But
Wow.
you had one you were talking about 70 miles or better.
Yeah, and then there's what I see a lot of times because I live up near the Quebec border, and there's some good deer yards in Quebec too on that side. And then actually, when you get, people think when you go north into Quebec it gets wild, but you're not. You're below. You're in the St. Lawrence River Valley. You're not even in Quebec City, so it's farm country.
Yeah.
I can go across the border from me, and within 10 miles, you're in farm fields and stuff.
kidding. Gee,
So
that's
those
so
deer,
unusual.
all the
Yeah.
deer along the Maine and northern New Hampshire border, a lot of those deer go into Quebec for the winter because they can spend the winter in farm country.
How about that?
And then
sure.
they come back. But yeah, some of those ridges up along there, you'll see those big migration trails, and you'll have one, and all the deer tracks are headed to Canada. And then you go down the ridgeways, and all the deer tracks are headed down. It's called Canada Falls Lake, and that was a traditional deer yard, and some still go there. And then there's a trail going that way. Then the next one, they're all going to Canada.
Really
Strange.
something.
Yeah, because they go where their mother takes them. That's how they learn
That's
it.
right.
And they'll
That's how they
always
learn.
go there. They
Yes,
don't know
exactly.
anywhere else to
No,
go.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked with some guys that on the backside of Jackman and back where his remote camp was in Beatty, when they first opened that country up, I talked with some guys that hunted over Eustis Way that I've become friendly with, and they were shooting some gigantic bucks over there. And those bucks, like if you started getting snow early, like Thanksgiving week, all the deer would start heading into Canada, like he said, because once you got out of the mountain range and into Quebec, you got back into farm country. Even those smart old bucks and smart old does, they would, because that migration trail was there, they'd go right through the middle of clear cuts Thanksgiving week or muzzleloader week because that's where they were going.
That's right.
And guys were shooting them
for the
right in
winter
clear
area,
cuts
yeah.
because
Wow.
that's where the travel
Amazing.
corridor was.
Yeah, they'd find them migration trails, and they'd just go sit in the clear cuts and pick them big bucks off headed to Canada, you know.
Wow. I probably mentioned this before, and you'll probably remember it. Do you know a fellow by the name of Randy Flannery?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever meet him?
Yeah, he's on the complete other side of the
side,
state,
I know,
like
yes,
down on the,
yeah.
I call it the flat country down east.
It
It's all,
is, too.
yeah, it's
Flatland.
flat, and it's green growth. You know, it's a spruce
Yeah.
fir forest there.
Well, I'm not to pump you up, but you and him, Randy Flannery, probably the two most knowledgeable men that I know about deer hunting. And Randy used to tell me, he said, Jim, he said, right from the east coast to the west coast, there's a line they call the snake line. It varies back and forth all the way across. And where we hunt, we're on the southern part of that. Now, if you think about it, the further north you go in almost any animal's territory, the bigger the animal is. Well, we're right in the southern part of it, so we very seldom kill a deer that weighs 200 pounds. Most of the time,
Yeah.
107. The antler growth is good, but the size of the animal is smaller. And just a classic example of that, part of that runs right through Tupper Lake in New York. And quite often those contests they have up there, they have deer that'll rest 230, 240. We very seldom ever kill a deer that's over 200 pounds. Tom killed one, it was 202, Tom, that one that you got?
205 and another one 200. We didn't always weigh our deer, first of all.
Yeah. And it was usually when we weighed them, it was a week after, or at least a week after. My cousin Alan, who's dead now, killed a buck the first time he ever hunted up there. And the deer, we went in a contest on a balance scale, it was 210. And I can remember it was one of the few deer I can remember carrying where it felt like my knee was going to come apart.
I remember you telling me when I first met you 25 years ago at that, we talked earlier about that Lake George whitetail show. I was really surprised because you had a lot of deer antlers on your table that were around 140 inches, which Maine Adirondacks, 140 inches, that's a good deer, right?
Yes.
But you had a lot of deer that were 140 inches that you said the deer might only weigh 145 pounds. And I was so amazed at that because in Maine, like I was hunting at that time, I was hunting in Cocado a lot. And if you shot a 140-inch buck, it was a 240-pound deer.
Yeah.
If it was 140 inches.
I never killed a buck 200 pounds. Even when I hunted in Maine, the buck I killed was 198.
Yeah.
And I was just going to tell you a short story here. When we hunted Saskatchewan, a friend of mine lived in New York City. His name was Angelo Markropoulos. I'll never forget. He was a Greek. Anyways, I don't know how he found my name, but he ended up finding my name and where we hunted. So he called up there just to tell me he was hunting in Saskatchewan. He says, I killed a buck today, believe it or not, Jim. He said it dressed 310 pounds dressed.
Oh,
And the
man.
next day, a guy asked him to kill one for him, and he killed another one that was 311.
Wow.
I can't picture a deer that big. I can't.
Yeah.
Even that one that you killed, I mean, 260, you know, that's all probably almost the same.
I shot one in Ontario that was 280.
No kidding.
Wow.
And so that's got to be like 350 on the hoof. You know?
Sure.
When
What were
you
the
say-
antlers like?
Big.
Big.
Were they?
That one, see, usually I get shortchanged on antlers. I've shot a lot of big deer, but my antlers, I mean, I've got some good ones, but I call a lot of them, you know, they're average for our area. And, but that one, when I seen that thing there, I'm like, it's got like baseball bats coming out of its head. Scores 166. It's a 10-pointer,
Yeah.
really heavy and wide. It's 22 inches inside.
Yes.
But it's got relatively short points, huh?
Yeah,
I don't
it's
think
mostly
there's any
in,
points over 6-7 inches.
it's
Yeah.
in mass. I can add some depth to that story. Invariably, when we went to Ontario, we were going up like right after moose season, and we'd have 8 or 10 guys, and most of them were all either guiding for me or Hal or whatever.
That's if we went muzzleloader.
That was if we went during muzzleloader
we went
season.
late October muzzleloader or early December rifle. We did it both ways.
But the year that you shot the big one, the year that he shot his big one, it was in October. And Hal was the first one to get sick, but that went on for quite a few years. Everybody would pick up a bug from one of the moose hunters or whatever, and so everybody would be sick. Well, Hal was lucky. He was sick earlier in the week and got over it. But that last day, there was only 3 guys in camp that weren't sick.
Gee.
It was because I don't get sick. I never did get sick up there. These guys, every year, they'd be sick. So the last day, it was him and our friend Tommy and me. And I was just far enough away from him that when he shot that buck, I couldn't make radio contact with him, but I could with Tommy. And Tommy had relayed to me, he said, I'm headed back to camp. He said, Hal shot a big buck. So I just started heading in the direction. I knew basically where Hal was. So finally I got close enough where I could make radio contact with Hal. And I said, how big is it? And he said, he's pretty conservative by nature. I said, how big is it? And he said, you ain't going to believe it. So when we get down in there, that deer's rack was so heavy and so wide. I looked at it and his head was up off the ground,
Wow.
Yeah, his
And-
head wasn't even on the ground. His antlers
So-
were holding it up.
I said, Hal, that's a Rackosaurus. I feel so, one of the great contributions in my life was I got to name Hal's biggest buck. I said, that's a Brachiosaurus.
Well, how do you get a deer like that out? You cut it
Me.
up?
Call it up. You get a hold of your buddies. And it wasn't a real long drag, actually. I think it was like a half
Half a mile. And it
But
was
it-
uphill a little bit.
Yeah, it was down into a spruce bog from the gravel road. But when Tommy went back to camp, I sent him back to camp to get Chris was back at camp, and another guy, Mike Stevens, was back. And actually, Mike had shot a buck that morning too. He paddled a canoe up the lake and shot an 8-pointer from the canoe.
How about that?
So when Tommy got there, Mike was just getting back with it in the canoe. So he got Mike and Chris was the reason Chris wasn't with me. It would have been a beautiful footage. He'd been filming me all week,
Wow.
and he actually filmed the first one. I shot a 10-pointer the first day we got there, and I shot one the last day.
How about that?
And because you could use, out there, each other's tags.
Party
Yes.
tag.
Yeah.
So anyways, Chris was too sick to go. He was like stumbling around that day. I said, we ain't going to do nothing with you in the woods. So I was by myself. But anyways, Chris ended up getting out of bed and coming to. And so Chris and Lee come down, and Tommy was there, and somebody else maybe.
I don't remember. I just remember that Chris, I'm surprised he's not down here listening to this, because this is one of Chris's favorite stories, was I grabbed one antler and Chris grabbed the other, and he had a drag rope and was up ahead of us. And
we put a rope around his horns.
Yeah.
And then I had a drag stick, but I had a bad hernia that I was getting operated, and I didn't want to do too much.
Yes.
So I was like moral support.
He was walking up ahead of us, and the first time Chris saw that the drag rope was slack, he was upset.
But I knew it was gonna be a pretty good pull with that.
Man,
we didn't know
that's a
what
big
it weighed, but I knew it was really
heavy.
big.
Yes.
So you were able to weigh him the first day then?
We got out to camp, and I always brought didn't always, but this year we had the scale, one of them Cabela's scale, and they're actually very accurate. They're within like a pound of when you get down to the store.
That's close.
So we yanked him up on that, and it was 280. I didn't think it was that heavy.
Wow.
Tommy did. Tommy said,
I told you 275 because I dragged one. My
Holy
father.
Smokes! I'd like to see a buck that big.
Yeah.
I dragged him. My biggest one was 245, and my dad's was 250. So I'd seen some deer that big, and I said that deer's got to be 275 because it's bigger than anything I'd seen. So
that's amazing.
He was like thick from his neck to his ass.
Straight all the way. Yeah,
he
big
was
wide deer had to be.
And long,
Yeah.
For all you big woods buck hunters, if you're looking for an ideal base camp for hunting in the big woods, in the Adirondacks and Tug Hill, you got to call our friends at Christmas and Associates. For over 35 years, they've been providing land and camps to sportsmen, 5 to 50 acres, rivers, streams, and ponds in some of the best locations, affordable prices, and in-house financing with low monthly payments. They can even build their Adirondack-style cabins on property you already own. For more info, call Christmas and Associates at 1-800-229-7843 or go to landandcamps.com. Visit Christmas and Associates on Facebook. What I was curious about with you guys was because you had to walk back in. When I first started seeing your stuff and you're lugging the bucks on your back, and I'm thinking, because, we're always thinking, I'm looking at the bucks. They got good racks, so I'm thinking they're the same size bucks as us. It was years before I realized, they mostly weigh around 150, 60 pounds. I could see where you could carry one of those.
I would say probably the average. Well, we always weighed them like several days afterwards, but the average weight, I would say probably 170 times, 165.
Probably average.
Yeah. That would be the average mature buck.
Yeah. 170, 175.
Yeah, but
you carried that 205 deer. That was the same day it was shot.
Yes.
Just
the one L shot?
No, the one I shot. 205 up the.
Oh, yeah.
Just heavy enough to pinch the air out of your lungs.
Jim was always in great shape. He run a lot. Dickie Hart before him, uncle. They were the best packers we had. Some good packers, but
did you just start carrying them out of necessity because of the drags were long?
Easier than dragging.
Yeah,
believe it or not.
In some cases, it was easier than dragging.
A lot of bare ground, so.
Yes.
Well, you'd like to have a guy ahead of you to kind of pick your way for you.
Cross country was most of it. Until we hit a trail, we'd always go down and try to hit a trail.
His father was the first one to build a deer cart with two-wheel cart. Couldn't handle. That's so we used sulky wheels and a lot stronger wheels.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'd have to push 2 deer in a cart 8.5 miles out of the woods to get to the car,
Yeah.
And before that, we also had a guy in town that had a horse and wagon, and we'd put the deer in the wagon at the end of the week.
That buck and that bear we pushed out on that cart.
Did you, Roy?
Yeah. The buck weighed 194 and the bear weighed 299. And cart we made out of conduit. We brazed conduit.
Yeah.
And it held up.
It
But we
did.
had sulky wheels, you know.
Yeah.
They're a lot different.
So
than
if you threw one on your back, how far would you go before you had to set down? You know, take the weight off you for a minute.
Sometimes only a few feet if you're going uphill.
Yeah,
Jim.
mostly it was carrying
The
them uphill
whole
and
idea
drag them
was,
downhill.
Jim will tell you, the whole idea was when you're tired, rest.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to
You're
rest.
Tired rest. Sometimes
Don't overdo it.
Sometimes it'd be 100 yards. Sometimes it'd be almost a quarter mile before you had to rest. But you know,
I
rest
got
when you
moved.
got tired.
He shot one weight on 198. I got moved in. Remember you fell on that tree?
Yeah,
Going through that tree?
I had this buck I'd killed up a place where we hunted there, and we were carrying it back down. There was, 4 of us, Tom, or 3 of us? I don't remember. Anyways, there was 2 logs were across the trail. One was like this and one was like this. So I had the buck on my back, and I went to get over the first one, and when I did, I lifted my leg up, and the deer pulled me right down. I was stuck there. I couldn't get out. So they grabbed a hold of the deer by the horns and pulled me and the deer out together. Tom's got movies of that.
Did you ever hurt yourself bad enough so that somebody else had to, like when you were lugging deer out for people, always stayed on top of it?
That buck I carried a years by the grassy skid road that time. That was a heavy buck.
I don't remember which one that was.
Yeah, I think it was 190 some pounds.
Was it? Yeah.
I just remember it just pinched my lungs and I couldn't breathe. It was so heavy. I went a little ways with it.
So you might carry it and drag it in
Yeah.
the same trip.
Sometimes
Yeah.
carry it uphill and drag it downhill.
Yeah, just whatever. I
The
get
only
it.
trouble with dragging it is when you tie them in a pack, the leg sticks out
Yeah.
and you're dragging it catches everything, you know.
On the snow, it was a lot of times easier to drag on the snow, but a lot
Yeah.
of times we were shooting deer on
Well, I would,
the
and
leaves.
downhill too. I wouldn't
Yeah.
see the point because it's harder to go downhill
Oh,
even
yeah.
on your own
Yeah.
with that weight on your back. It's
Yeah,
I still would rather carry. My top weight at that time, in fact, when Tom and I fought about the same weight, 135 pounds. I weighed 135. I would much rather carry a deer than drag it. You
My
would
son
say
does
which?
it during bear
What was your
season.
body mass index then?
I have no idea.
Never
Zero,
checked
probably.
that stuff.
Did you guys ever think about, like, I can remember when he went out, he quartered and packed his out. Did you guys ever cut yours up? And
We
quarter
do
them?
now.
You do now, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I quartered in them days was moose.
I've done it. I've done it a couple of times in the last few
He
years.
shot a moose back there about 4 miles, 4.5
5 miles.
miles.
That one. We had 2
He
of
carried
them.
a whole moose out himself.
I didn't know they had a moose season in New York.
They don't. This was-
That was
Quebec.
in Quebec, yeah.
But
We
he
hunted
quartered
Quebec
it
for
and-
quite a long time. Quartered and
It's the
carried.
only time a whole man.
I hunted for I think it was 5 hours, and I packed moose meat for 5 days. Yeah, all day, each day.
Yeah.
Well, we got them out, didn't we, Tom? We even
Well,
brought the heads out.
Probably a moose quarter was probably light compared to one of them deers.
That's true.
I mean,
The moose quarters were about 140.
Yeah.
You heard the story about the guys on moose hunting, and none of them liked to cook. So, nobody wanted to do cook, so they drew straws, and one guy got the job of being a cook. Man, he hated cooking. The guys were complaining. You heard this story?
No.
Coffee's too weak. Coffee's too strong. You burnt the eggs. Bacon isn't cooked right. Oh, he's so disgusted. Finally, he says, listen, the next guy that complains, he's going to do the cooking. I'm giving up the cooking. So he's mad. He goes out hunting after cooking that day. And got to get out of this job cooking. He sees a spot where some moose shit. He takes some of that, puts it in his pocket. He gets back to camp. Morning, he mixes it with the pancakes. Guy starts eating the pancakes. Boy, this tastes just like milk shit, but it's good.
It tasted bad, but not bad enough to want to cook.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Good story. My father's favorite stories.
Yep. Oh, your father's cooking was. He used to keep a pot of stuff going all the time. You'd shoot a rabbit, throw it in a pot. The next day you'd have a grouse, you'd throw it in a pot. Our buddy Freddie Hanley always called it mung. Yeah, we're gonna have mung for dinner, and it was too.
But it was good.
But
yeah.
everything's good when you're hungry.
Well, yeah, back in camp, when you're in a remote camp, it doesn't matter what it is. It's
Right.
good, huh?
Yeah,
Yes.
it
Oh,
is, and it
man,
really
that
is,
night you get
You'd
to-
eat things you wouldn't even dream of
Yeah,
eating
yeah,
back
yeah.
home, you know?
and it really is good.
Yeah. I want to hear like an earlier story. Like,
When you're young.
Okay.
yeah, when you're younger or something. You know?
All right. This was probably when we had the halfway camp, Tom. It was hunting down Red River. I hunted down there 4 days in a row. I saw 15 bucks in 4 days, and I put on probably 10 miles each day. Anyways, this one day I went down there. I'm a terrible shot. I always was. I probably always will because I don't practice enough. But anyhow, I'm traveling down here, and this was, I think, the third or fourth buck that I'd seen. And it was right off the road that I walked down on. So I pulled up and I shot 3 or 4 times at it, and anyways, the deer run off. So anyways, I got up to where I shot, and there was some blood there. And anyways, I started tracking the deer. It's just leaves, no snow. I tracked it for quite a ways, and I noticed the deer would punch quite a bit in the leaves on one side more than the other. So I said, well, I must have hit him in that front leg. Anyhow, I tracked it till about, I don't know, 10:30, 11 o'clock, and I said, nah, I can't follow the track anymore. I just can't follow it. So I decided that I would just go the direction the deer was headed. So I headed along there for probably another hour and a half, and finally I got to a spot where I stood up on a windfall, and gee, I kept watching over there and listening. I said, it sounds like something's over there. I said, it sounds like something in the leaves over there. So anyways, I got off the log I was on, and I eased over to the spot there, and I got over there, and I'm looking around, and holy smoke, there's a bed here that's all pawed up, and it's got a couple drops of blood, and another one over here, another one over here, another one over there. I looked up, it was about 15 feet from me as this buck got up out of his bed, and I ended up shooting him right from the hip. But I hit him in the hoof.
That's
the
it?
Hoof. That's all I did.
Just in the hoof?
Yeah.
How many hours did you track them?
Probably about 5.5 or 6 hours.
Into it, huh?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You gotta.
Roy, you got one that you hit in the shoulder that time.
Oh, gosh.
Man, that was a great story.
Yeah, I hunted in a new area that I never hunted before, and I come to a spot where there was a big beaver meadow, and he were a big buck track went across a trail in front of me, and it went across, and it was all slashy. I said, I'm not going to go across that. And I like to circle deer. I track them, but sometimes, depending on the terrain, sometimes the Adirondack terrain, to me, forces you to circle them, like different finger ridges and stuff. Instead of staying right on their track, sometimes it's nice to circle. So I said, I'm going to go around this big beaver soil. So I went around. I got up on a little ridge on the other side. Probably, well, actually, it was right where he came across. I didn't know it. And I was easing along the ridge, and I was going to peek, and I looked, saw the movement, and this big buck stands up, and he's about 110 yards away. And he stood up and looked at me. I knew he was ready to go, so I turned like this, and I shot kind of fast. I didn't have time. Well, what I did is I hit him in the shoulder. Poor thing. I felt bad about it anyway.
I bet you
So,
did.
no, I mean, after the all day of tracking him, I did feel bad for him. But they're just dumb animals, but they're intelligent. Because this darn deer, I tracked him for about 4 hours, and he laid down twice. Blood was bleeding. Well, then I was tracking him along this ridge, and all of a sudden, I'm going on this track, and all of a sudden I realize this is a little track. It's not the same deer. But it was another deer, and I don't know if he did it on purpose, but I backtracked. Like, geez, what happened to his track? And there was a little ledge right here about shoulder height right next to me. And it just happened to look like that. And I noticed that some of the leaves were kicked up. What that deer did, leapt right up on that thing. And that other, I don't know if he did it on purpose, but that other deer took off, and that got my attention. I tracked it. So when I come back and find out what he did, he jumped up on that ledge. And when he jumped up, he tried to use both legs. And he poked the bone, and he cut an artery. So then, in the next 2 hours, he laid down 14 times.
Wow.
And the last time was just before dark, about a half hour before dark. And he got up. I felt bad because he started to get up, and he didn't have the strength. So I finished him off. So anyway, I dressed him out and got everything cleaned up and checked my topo map, tried to figure exactly where I was, because I had a scat. It was all of a sudden I see a deer walking, and he was a bigger deer than this, but he was only a 6-pointer. He walked right up, and he walked right down the tracks we just came down. And he was a big deer, and he just disappeared off into the woods.
Wow. What time did you get back to camp, Roy?
Well, that was a long story, too, because I had a friend with me, and he took my truck and went back to camp. So I was walking out, and I hit a trail, and I see a tent light, or it turned out to be a tent light. And I get up there, and it's an older fella and his wife. They were older than me. I mean, they were much older than me, and they had a snowmobile. And he kept trying to tell me he was grandfathered to use that snowmobile. So he insisted. Well, the road's about another 2 miles. He says, we'll take you down. I said, no, I'll walk. No, he insisted he was going to take me down. So, okay, I waited, and they put me in this basket. I'm telling you, I dug sand out of my teeth and out of my gun. So now they take me down to the road. So now I'm about 2 miles from my truck. So I'm hoofing down the road like a madman, and every time a car come down, I'd go off into the woods. So I'm almost to where my truck was, and my buddy wasn't there. He took the truck and went back but he was going to come back after me. So I'm standing in the woods. I see the truck come back, so I run up to the road with my rifle. All of a sudden, blink, 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 here's a trooper. He comes over and starts questioning me. He says, it's not often you see a crazy man bounding out of the woods in the middle of the night. Anyway, that was it. It was a long day tracking that deer, and it was a new area, so... So him and I went back the next day and got him.
Yeah, I remember you showed me on the map, so I knew I'd been in there before. And what was there, 3 or 4 of us went back to help get that deer out?
My brother Bob, you and me. Somebody else, I can't remember who. That deer was 9.5 years old. That was a nice buck.
Yeah.
He taught me a lot. You learn something on every one.
Every time you track one, you learn something.
Oh, yeah, exactly, every time. I think the most exciting buck I ever got, even though it's hard to distinguish which is the most exciting, I was with him when we were hunting kind of the same area, and he hunted this long way back to a certain part, my Bug Lake it's called, and on Route 28. So I'm coming down the road, and I'm going to find some place to hunt the last bewitching hour, And I see him walking down the road. So he jumps in. What are you going to do? I said, I'm going to hunt. He says, I said, where do you think we should hunt? And he says, well, this is as good a place as any. So we just parked on the side of the road. So he takes off because he's got his gun and everything. I grabbed my gun out and I put 3 shells in, and I had a bolt action. All of a sudden he whistled, and I look over at him, and he goes, and let me know there was a buck. So I didn't think much of it. He's going to track, and I know he is. So I load my gun, and I go across the road. I get up in the woods about 60 yards, and holy geez, there's this nice buck track. And he's hoofing. You can see the shit flying all over. He's hoofing along, but geez, I noticed he's going right parallel with the road. I said, there's no way I'm going to keep up with him in the woods. So I go out to the road, and I start running down 28. And I kept pushing myself. I was getting tired, carrying my rifle and running. But I said, I got to go further. Something told me I got to go further. Finally, I got to the spot. I said, I got to cut in the woods. I cut in the woods. I go about 100 yards, and he walks right out in front of me. I shot him. So then I gutted him out and stuff. I thought I heard you whistle. But he comes out, and he didn't know anything. He says, what happened? I said, I got a deer. He said, you do? And I opened up the back of the truck, and it was the same deer. But it was just lucky to stumble into the right place at the right time. And if I'd have cut in sooner, I would have never seen him. I just pushed myself to go a little further.
As far as you could.
Yeah, what a lucky break. And they're all luck. You got to have a luck with every one of them.
Yeah.
It's 2 points connecting.
Yeah, exactly.
Tom, you got that story that you could tell, I'm sure. At least one, probably 2.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I'll just tell you about the first one of it. But we started hunting before we were really legal age, We'd lie on our birth certificate or something, maybe.
Yeah,
but anyway,
my father eradicated.
So my old man told me, he's hunting at the 8.5 mile camp. I'm at the halfway camp, 5.5 miles. Early in the fall. Don't get caught on the road, whatever you do. But anyway, it's a hot day in the fall, and I'm saying, oh, man, ain't no deer moving. I got to get back to camp. I'll eat lunch at camp. So I walk out on the road. It's only maybe where I come out off of Wildcat Mountain to where the trail went to the halfway camp. Maybe 300 yards. I'm walking along. All of a sudden, I hear a vehicle. Here comes a state trooper behind me. Oh, my God. So let's see your license. License. You're supposed to be hunting with an adult? Yeah, I know. Well, where's the adult? My father. He's up the ridge. Well, my father's 8.5 miles back in. So he says, is that gun loaded? I said, yeah. You see a deer? Would you shoot it? I don't know. Like hell, I would have shot it if I seen it. But anyway, well, he said, I'll let you go this time, but you're not supposed to be alone. Okay. I go back to camp. Cooper gets back in the car and he drives back 10 miles, turns on the plains, and he goes and he sees a guy hiking along the road. Pulls over. Let's see your license. Ray Massett. You got a son named Tom? Yeah. He said he's hunting with you. He's 5 miles back there. Oh, he's not hunting with me. He's hunting with his brother Ray. Oh, okay. So my old man chewed my ass out, boy. When he got after you, he got up one side and down the other. Don't you ever get caught. Yeah. This is the logging road back in.
Yeah. Well, you guys were fortunate. You had your father would take you like that. And
so we knew the woods.
It's true.
You had experiences. Huh,
it was fantastic.
So a couple of weekends later, I'm walking down the road before daylight, going back to the Moose River Plains, and all of a sudden a pair of lights hit me, and I started running through the woods, looking back. I run right off a ledge. Next thing I know, my ass is down. My gun falls out of my hand. Bob, I'm trying to reach my gun so I don't blow my leg off. Knocked the ivory bead right out of my front sight.
Out of your gun, like your 35, yeah.
35 Rem model. But just leading up to this story, when I was back there hunting on my father's camp early in the fall, a year later, and I wasn't seeing any deer, so I said, I'll go back to the halfway camp. So after breakfast, I take my pack and my sleeping bag, and I hit the road, and I'm walking back, and I hear a lot of shooting up on Wildcat Mountain. We call it Wildcat. And there must be a lot of deer up there, looking guys shooting. You know, I'm a young kid. So I go up there. I leave the pack at the road, near the spot where the trooper caught me, maybe a mile away, 3/4 mile. Up the ridge I go, and I get up on top. A lot of leaves, it's dry. I'm coming to a spot where there's a drop-off on the ridge on the other side. And I sneak over to the ridge. I won't make much noise. Well, I got maybe within 20, 30 yards of the edge of the ridge, and I snapped a twig. I see one bound, a buck out of his bed, boom, like that. Holy jeepers, I run over to the side of the ridge, and he's just hitting the bottom of it then. And I start shooting. Boom, boom, about 4 shots. The fourth one, I figured he swung broadside then. He's probably 80, 90 yards away. I shoot, and I hit right in front of him. I see the dirt kick up. And then he's up in the woods, gone. I said, gee, I hope I hit him. I go down and I check back and forth. I never cut a hair on that deer. Oh, I was sick. Oh, the guys will probably cut my shirt tails off when I go back and tell them I missed this buck. I'm feeling sorry. I was ready to cry practically. I've got to go back to camp, and I'm walking down, kicking the leaves. I get almost to the end of the road where the trooper had caught me the year before. I look. Heard that kid away. There's a deer feeding. It's a buck. I go, can you believe it? Boom, I shoot. He runs all the ways, flop. All of a sudden, 2 deer up to the right. Boom, bada, boom, boom, boom. They turned right around, come right back. Stood right by that buck.
Okay.
Yeah. Looking around. I finally took a step, and off they went. I had a knife my father had given me, a K-bar. So I gutted a deer out. It was a 7-pointer, not very big. Tickled to death that I got one. Well, I left the knife sticking in the ground. And my father was so mad at me. I carried that knife for 40 years. You carry it one season, you lose that damn knife. But I was happy. I shot my first deer.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, that's the end of that story.
The lost knife buck.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good stuff.
Seek Outside is an American company producing lightweight, versatile tents and titanium stoves. The Big Woods Bucks team and their friends have hunted the Adirondacks with Seek Outside hot tents and found that it's the best way to get back into the wilderness areas and have a remote hunt. With few roads and hiking trails the only way to access the extensive backcountry of the Adirondacks, your pack needs to be as light as possible. Seek Outside's lightweight tents and stoves enable you to get back there into the most remote country and hunt mature Adirondack bucks that likely have never seen a human being. Use code BWB at checkout on SeekOutside.com and get 10% off your Seek Outside gear. Good luck on your remote hunt in the big woods.
Tom's next. Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about one of the most difficult bucks I ever shot.
Oh, I'm interested to hear that.
This buck was up Otter Brook, through the Moose River Plains to Otter Brook, then 5 miles up Otter Brook. Jim had told me about this deer. He'd seen the track the year before. Great big track, he said.
Yeah, 2 years I tracked that deer.
So I tracked him for 3 years. So anyway, I go up there the first time with Roger Kronreiser, a friend of mine from upstate New York. And Roger had a bad leg, so he couldn't climb the mountain. We took the trail in. I started in, snow on the ground. Gee, and I get maybe a half mile off the trail up the mountain, Little Moose Mountain, and I see that track. I said, man, that is a nice track. That's got to be the track Jim has been talking about. So I start tracking it. Sure enough, he works his way up to the top of the mountain, up to the top of the mountain, and then he swings downwind. I said, that pot licker, he's going to go right downwind, and he's going to be bedded over there, and he's going to go out before I even see him. But I was right at the peak of the mountain. Should I circle him or should I what? I don't know. I'll go a little bit further on his track. Well, I went a little further on his track. Out he bounds, one out of a bed. One bound, I see a nice rack on him. Get the gun to my shoulders, gone. Kick myself because I didn't circle. So I start tracking this deer. Probably 2 or 3 inches of snow on the ground. Fought along the top, finally dropped off a ridge, down a little gully and up on another ridge. So I stood there looking. I said, he's probably bedded over on that other ridge over there. I don't know. I look it over. I put my scope up. I look. I can't find him anywhere. Took one more step. Out he bounds, just where I figured he was. Get the gun to my shoulder, just about to shoot, and he disappears. Oh, my God. A nice big buck. Probably a 10-pointer, but an old-timer. So I track him again, and it gets late. I said, I ain't going to go all the way out. Some friends of ours had a cabin tent in there. Jim had told them about it, so I'm going to spend the night. So I go and they weren't there. I go in there and I spent the night. Snowed. I found a can of beans I had for dinner. Not much to eat.
Was there a sleeping bag there for you?
Yeah, they left their gear in there. Yeah. So in the morning, I got a foot of snow. Son of a gun, I can't even pick up the track. Too much snow. And I know them guys would be looking for me because I didn't come out. You know, somebody don't go out, you got to go find out what happened to them. So I run out. I go out. Shouldn't run. I go down to the trail and meet some of them fellas. And, yeah, I was all right. And so I go back. So that was the first year. So the second year, I go up. It's a long shag. Drive in from Jim's camp all the way back through the plains to Otter Brook. Leave the vehicle there, walk in 5 or 6 miles. I pick up his track again. This day it's warm, snow on the ground, and you come off the mountain. I could tell this is the deer. There's no deer that's got a big track as this deer. I said, it's got to be that same deer. Sun come out, so I start tracking. It's coming down off the mountain. I finally cross a skid road, and I hit a spot. There were some evergreens, and then a steep ridge. And I stood, and the sun had hit that ridge and melted all the snow off. I could see the leaves where he kicked up when he walked down. I said, I'll bet you that bugger is bedded down somewhere just over in there. I stood there for 4 or 5 minutes. I blew in my deer call a couple of times. Nothing. So steep you can't be quiet going down it. You almost slide. It's one of those ridges. Well, little did I know he'd probably been out of his bed maybe 10, 15 minutes. Got out of his bed, walked a little ways, got into a little dip and started feeding on some...
Fitlets.
No, what I'm trying to say. What's the buds they like so much? Witch hopple. Yeah, feed on witch hopple. And that pot liquor run out. I never seen him till I got to see his bed. Now I said, that damn deer. I said, he blitzed me again. So I try to get back up that ridge just as fast as I could. You couldn't run up it, but just as fast as I could. I get to the ridge, I hit the skid road, and I run down the skid road just to see his ass disappearing. Missed him again. So now we get another year go by. And 3 of us go up that time. Jim, my cousin Al, and myself. So I went up on one side of the Otter Brook, and they were on the trail. And as I come up along there, used to be one of the original guides in there. What was his name? Harwood. He had a campsite there, and it's since been burnt down by the state. So I went through his campsite, and I get down pretty close to where a creek come down off of the mountain and flew into Otter Brook. And just before that creek, I looked and I see, gee, there's that big track, and it looks like 2 buck and 1 doe. And it's probably from the night before, Now it's, probably 11 o'clock by the time we get in there. So I go up, I meet those guys, we have lunch. I said, I seen that track down there. I'm going to go up to the top and see if I can find that deer. So I start up again. I go up to the top of the mountain. I figure if he's somewhere between the creek and the top of that mountain. This is the 3rd year now. So I ease along the top of the ridge. I'm looking for a spot where I could sit down and survey the land below me. So I see a log there. I said, that looks like a spot. Nice. So I go down there and I clear the snow off, and I sit my rear end down there. I wasn't there 5 minutes. All of a sudden I see a doe down maybe 120 yards away or so, working her way up, and she looks behind her. I said, ooh, this looks good. So she comes across an open spot, and then she swung and started coming up towards me. So I get my camera ready. I was carrying a video camera then. So I take the video camera out, and I'm waiting. Now, my fanny is a little bit higher than my knees. So I got the gun across my knees, and sure enough, here comes that buck working his way up. So I start taking videos of him myself. When he comes across that spot where that doe was, I'll hold the camera in the side of my gun and nail him. Well, just then another buck down the ridge calls, "Bah!" Well, this buck wants to protect the doe, so he runs across the spot where I was going to be able to shoot him, and the gun almost falls off into the snow, and I have to grab the gun before I lose it into the snow, and he's gone. He's disappeared. And I said, holy jeepers. I said, what a stoop. I'm messing with deer for 3 years, and I get a chance to shoot him, and I'm trying to take pictures of him first. So I said, I got to get a little higher. So I started backing up nice and easy, and the snow is packing. I figured if I got up high enough, I could see where that deer went, that buck. So I went maybe 4 or 5 steps, and I caught a movement to my left, and I look, and there's the doe about 30 yards away. She caught me moving. I'm halfway between a step, and you got to freeze. I just watching, waiting for her. Come on, baby, move. Finally, she relaxed and started moving off. I finished the step, and I looked down there, and I could see one brown spot in the evergreen trees. I said, that's where he is. I ain't going to monkey with him this time. Boom, I shoot. Now the other buck comes running right up. The doe starts looking back. Where'd my boyfriend go? Back she goes, boom, 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 right down to where she first crossed. And the other buck come up. He was a smaller buck, smaller rack. I turned my scope up to 8 power. Blind in one eye, like me. I can't see it now. But I could tell eye was all glassed over. I could see it.
On that eye.
Yeah. So he seen her, and they both take off. So now I go down, and sure enough, there's the buck laying dead. Now he's only a 6-pointer. He's got 3 broken points. Nice spread, but an old buck. And I hunted so hard for him to get him after 3 years. It was just an exciting time.
So tell him what you did then.
So I dragged him down towards where we were camped, hung him up in a tree.
Let's see, he hung up in the tree. Now, I'd been hunting this deer for 3 years. Tom said, yeah, but I picked up before you, and I told you he was there. Yeah. Anyways, I heard about this buck that he shoots, so I go down where he's got the thing hanging in a tree. I got down, and I hunted that deer for 3 years. The first time I see him, he's hanging in a tree by a rope. Tom had killed him. Yeah. Anyway, that was Tom's great story. It was a great story. You hurt your knee then, didn't you, or something?
I did. Yeah, I twisted my knee. And a matter of fact, that all swelled up that night. I hobbled out the next day to get the cart. Yeah. We dragged the deer all the way down.
Yeah, then we pushed it out on the cart. Anyways.
It wasn't it was just a a trophy after all that
It
time.
was after all that time. Yeah.
I mean, his
I don't know
horns were
how
a lot
many.
better the first year than I seen him.
I don't know how many times I jumped that deer and never could get a good look at him. It was a nice buck, though.
Yeah.
How'd you know when you saw the brown spot down there was 2 bucks? How'd you know which
Well,
one?
because the other one was down the ridge, I heard him call, and he was off to my right. This deer had run to the left.
I got you.
Yeah, wasn't the same deer. I knew that.
Now, you said that he had broken points, but he still had 6 left.
He would have been a 9-pointer if his points weren't broke off.
It's a big deer, too. What did he weigh, 180 sometime when we got him? Yeah.
But probably the saddest, the ones you miss sometimes they stick with you a long time.
For sure.
Yeah.
I always wanted to shoot a deer with a drop tine. So I'm up in Canada hunting. We run a camp at Malachi Lake. And Roy had shot at this big buck he'd seen the year before. He'll tell you the story. He was having trouble finding it. He was on an island where he shot it. Deer jumped in the water. He couldn't find it. He knew he hit it. So the second or third day, I go over to help him to try to find the deer. And there was snow on the ground. I got up on a spot where his buck is chasing a deer, dove back and forth. I never seen it. Was like a
Barnyard.
I couldn't straighten the track out. Did you ever get one like that? I could not straighten that track out. I was back and forth, this way, that, cross. I couldn't straighten it out. Finally, I got sick of it. I said, this deer, he beat me. I can't find where the hell he come out of here. I spent all hours up there. Finally, I had some prayers to say, and I said, I'll lean against a swamp or rock here, and I'll say these prayers. And a little spike horn come out. I said, I ain't come all the way to Canada to shoot a spike horn. So I started heading back towards the boat because we had to get from one side of the lake where we had to camp to the other side where he figured the deer that he'd shot at 2 days before swam to. So I come out and I hit a 4-wheel trail. Some people lived there year-round at that Malachi Lake, and they had 4-wheel drive trails, ATV trails, I should say. And I hit it. It started to rain a little. And I had the gun in the crock of my right arm here, 30-06, ran my semi-automatic. And I looked to my left, and I looked to my right, and that deer seen me about the same time I seen him. Big rocker, not 1 drop tine, but 2 on each side, and they were about 4 inches long. What a beautiful buck! And he spotted me just as he must have been walking right down that trail because he looked like that. You see how sometimes they're surprised to see you. Well, I was surprised to see him too. So I'm trying to think to myself, I can just turn around and get the gun to my shoulder. And he's looking straight at me. He's only 60 yards. Well, the bad thing I had with this gun, I should have had to take care of long before, had a long trigger pull. You'd expect it to go off, and you always have to pull it further. And if he only stands still, if he only stays there, and I squeeze the trigger on him, and I give it a yank. I missed him clean. Up the mountain he goes. That was one that'll stick in my mind the rest of my life. The ones you get away.
Yeah.
2 drop tines. But go ahead.
You go ahead.
Yeah.
Tell the story.
Well, so many stories you can tell. Some of them some deer are so hard to get, and some of them so easy. I'll just tell you an easy one. That same year, we came back, and I went up to camp, up to the Adirondacks, and I got up early in the morning. I went over to this place called the Uncas Road, and fresh snow, and it's a seasonal road. They don't maintain it. So I drove down the road, and nice fresh snow, and son of a gun, I look, and there's a track. So I stopped my truck, and I looked, holy gee, that's a nice buck track. So I backed up. It had come across the road. I backed up. Took some time to find a place to park, and I finally just drove off the road down in this dip. And I went over and I got on the deer's track. It was about a half hour before good daylight, and I was easing along its track, and son of a gun, it dropped down off the ridge, went right across the Uncas Road. So now I tracking him. Now it's about 11:30, and I come to a spot where he made a rut bed. And I see where a doe had come up to that rut bed, and she smelled that bed, and she started tracking him. So they got together, and I still tracking him. Now it's about noon, and I jumped him. So I like the circle again. I like the circle. So I made a big circle. I come down and they weren't bounding anymore. They were walking. And there was a spot, I'm telling you, it was at least 50 yards. She stepped in every one of his tracks. I thought it was one deer. I said, what the heck happened to the other deer? I mean, exactly in his tracks. So anyway, so I'm tracking him and tracking him. Now, like I say, now it's afternoon, probably about 12:30. And they went down in this valley, and there was a ridge over there. So I said, well, I'm going to go right along this ridge. I didn't realize it, but I'm getting right back close to that road. I didn't even realize I was close to the road. I'm paying attention to tracking the deer. So I'm making the circle, and son of a gun, I come over the ridge, and there she is. And she's all nervous, and she's looking back and forth. So, geez, I said, he's coming. All of a sudden, I look, and there he is. And I brought up my gun, and my scope was all fogged up. I had it under my arm. So I'm wiping the thing off. And finally I said, geez, I better shoot. And I got him in the gun. Boom. And I shot, and he took off. I said, well, I'm going to stay right on this ridge and stay above him. I went about 50 yards, and I'm standing right in the middle of the Uncas Road. The same road, yeah. I walked over the hill, and you could see the trail right across the road, you know. Blood trail, yeah. So I said, son of a gun. So he went right up this steep ridge. I went up about 25 yards, went over and I found him, and I dressed them all out. I dragged him about 5 yards and gave him a kick, and he slid right down into the road.
Gotta like them once
That was
in
the
a while.
ones you like. Yeah, that was an easy one.
That was 280.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a beautiful buck, too. And then one of them that was really interesting, I went up this place called the Buck Creek Trail. And it was snowing, and I just started in nice fresh snow, and I just cut off the trail. I see this nice buck. He's down there about 80 yards, standing, looking right at me, you know. It's kind of my nemesis shot. He was right at me. Nice buck. I seen he had a nice rack, so I pulled up and probably shot a little too fast. I hit a sapling. So anyway, I ended up tracking him right till dark, and he had crossed the Buck Creek Trail from the opposite side that I shot at him, and geez, and I remember just before dark, I was on his track, and he was right on this nice flat spot where I left his track. Well, that night it snowed, so I go up there, and you could still see my imprint from my boots, you know, where I was tracking him. So I said, what am I going to do? So what I did is I got back, and I checked my track, and I stuck a stick in there, and I lined it up with a tree way over there, about 150 yards away. I said, well, that's the way he was heading. Don't I go over to that tree? And then you see right where he got up out of his bed. And it was fresh as heck. And I ended up shooting him at about 9:30 in the morning. But it was just an accident. And, you know, like I say, everyone has luck. You have to have some luck. And that's what it was. And he was a nice buck. He was an old buck. Remember, you helped me come and go and get him. He was what was he, 8.5 years old?
Yeah,
Nice buck.
I guess. Great stories.
Yeah.
It's funny, like Tom mentioned, the ones that stick in your mind probably more than some of the ones you killed are the ones that get away.
Oh, yeah.
I was hunting in New Brunswick, and I don't know if you probably know this, but New Brunswick actually had about the same amount of trophy bucks in Boone and Crockett book as Saskatchewan did. So there's a lot of big bucks there, but it wasn't hunted a lot. So I had a friend of mine that was from New Brunswick, and he said, let's go up deer hunting. So we went up deer hunting. I went the first year, and one of those guys killed a buck. I didn't shoot anything. The second year we went, I was looking for different places to hunt. Now, New Brunswick, wherever you go, you need a guide. You have to have a guide. So anyhow, because we knew the people, they let us go on our own. So I left the camp there in the morning, and I just said I'll hunt up this one area there just because it looked good. And I got up there, and I hit an old railroad bed. Now, years ago, maybe you remember, maybe you don't. When the old steam engines they used to use coal to keep them running. And when they dumped the ashes out, they were like marbles. They were like this big around, the ashes and stuff like that. And they squeak just like marbles when you walk on them. Well, anyways, I find this old railroad with all the ties and everything are gone. So I said, I'll go up this. So I went up probably, I'm going to say a mile and a half, and people had driven four-wheelers up there, but there was a creek that had washed the whole thing out, and they couldn't go beyond that. I said, this looks so good to me. I'll go down across that thing. I got on the other side, and there's rubs there on trees this big. I mean, all scraped up. I said, man, I guess I hit the right spot. I didn't go, oh, golly, 200 yards, and I look way up the railroad bed there, and there's probably, I'm going to say 200, 250 yards, and here's this buck coming right along, walking right down the railroad bed. Thinking, holy smokes, this don't get any better than this. I could see he had a wide rack, but I couldn't tell how big. So I laid right down there. I said, well, I'll shoot at him. Boom, I shoot. Don't pay no attention. He just stood there for a minute. So I pull the gun up and I shoot again. Of course, I'm laying right down now. Shooting that far. I never shot that far before. Boom, I shoot again, and it must have landed right next to him because he come running down the railroad bed. So he's running down this railroad bed.
Right towards you?
Right towards me. So all of a sudden he cut off. So I said, well, I'll cut off. And I said, I'll pick him up here. And I said, I better go up a little further. So I go up a little further. And every time you step on those things, it's just like walking them up. Squeak, squeak, squeak like this. So I get right up probably, I'm going to say 75 or 100 yards from where I had last seen him. And he's coming down this thing, and he went off to the side. Anyways, I went to look off to the side there, and there's a beaver meadow there. And I'm looking there. All of a sudden, this, like the one upstairs, honest to goodness, a 200 class, 200-inch buck. I pull up the chute, and there's all the spruce growing up there. I can't get a shot. So I run down there like crazy, get down at the bottom, and I pull up, and the deer's running like this. I let him, and I shot, and I never touched him, and he got away.
Wow,
And it was a 200-inch buck. Honest, I swear it was.
wow.
Nightmares.
The ones that get away, sometimes they make
Back
you
in
sick.
the 80s, I had one of my neighbors. He had a camp out in behind me. He's the only person I know that killed two booners back in the 80s. He was going to New Brunswick and he killed two Boone and Crockett bucks.
Wow.
That was a hot spot back in the early 80s. New Brunswick was killing some big deer.
Yeah, this was in the 90s, I think. When
I'll tell you, one of the biggest bucks I ever saw was right there by Limekill Lake. I was hunting Fawn Lake Mountain in the fresh snow. I walked right across the beach early in the morning before daylight, went up on the mountain. Anyway, I got up there and not a track. Didn't see, and I just said to myself, that's crazy. And I looked way across Limekill Lake and the green stuff. I said, maybe they're in the green stuff. I said, I got to cut down there. So the lake disappears when you go through the woods, you know. And I'm heading down towards the lake, and I got to a spot where it was steep, and I kept slipping. And I'm actually cussing to myself. What kind of an idiot would catch themselves in a place like this? And I'm slipping and sliding. I said, there ain't a deer within 100 miles of me. I'm cussing to myself. All of a sudden, I look out, and there's one little bay at the end of Limekill Lake. And I look, and all of a sudden, this deer gets out on the other side of the bay, walks right into the water, starts swimming across the bay. And I think he's got something in his antlers because they were big, but it wasn't. So I bring up my scope, and I'm watching him. And he's about 400 yards away. So I remember fishing that bay when I was a kid. I said, it's not very deep. I said, I'm going to shoot at this son of a gun. So I start running. I get within about 250 yards, and I tried it, but, you know, I didn't hit him. So now I go, and it took me a long time to find his track where he come out. It seemed like it should be easy, but it wasn't. I find his track, and I track him all the way. He went across Governors at dark. So now I go out to the camp, and I didn't have a four-wheel drive, and you needed it after snow to get up that one mountain. So my brother told me, I'll take you in the morning. Don't worry, I'll take you in the morning. On my way out, a guy named Baker picked me up, and I told him all about it. I told him the whole story about this, and it was a huge buck. So my brother didn't get up in the morning. So I said, the heck with it, I'm walking. I walked all the way back in there, and there's the tracks. Baker went back in there. But he only tracked the deer about 200 yards. And the son of a gun, I stayed on his track, and he stopped. He turned around and went back to his truck. I didn't go 200 yards from his track and jumped him out of his bed.
wow.
Gets up out of his bed. What a monster. I never even had a chance. But I could have sprayed the area when it was swimming across. I did shoot at it once. He was huge. And I don't know, he must not have, it was thick. He must have wanted the easiest route. And, you know, a deer can swim as good as they can walk.
They can, yeah.
Their hair is hollow, and boy, he was huge. Son of a gun, I tracked him all day. Never did get a crack at him, though. I seen him, but I didn't have time to shoot.
The biggest buck I ever shot, I was Roy. We were hunting over a Stink Lake Mountain near the Moose River, and it was two notches in the mountain, one called the lower notch, one called the upper notch. And he went to the lower notch, and I went from our tent to the upper notch.
Tom.
I went to the upper notch. So anyway, make a long story short, I headed towards the lower notch, towards Roy, and I'm thinking maybe, we jump some between ourselves.
I got to chime in on this too.
Yeah. So I'm easing along, and all of a sudden I look up the ridge, and holy gee, here comes a set of antlers. I said, look at the size of that rack on that deer. Oh, my God. And he's walking, walking towards me, but he's up on the ridge. And I'm my right foot forward. Instead of like a dummy, I didn't switch around. I got to turn like this to shoot.
I had jumped the deer and pushed it toward him.
Thank you, Roy.
Yeah.
If I ever thank you before, thank you again.
Yeah.
So I pull up. I'm off balance. I shoot. Miss him clean. Runs down the mountain like a son of a gun. I try to follow him along. I didn't even get another shot.
So I jumped him again. Second time. And then what did he do? He runs right back up to him.
Oh, you didn't jump him
Yeah, I
again.
jumped him twice. The one time I seen him way down below me. And then,
Were you coming up on the top of that ridge?
no, I went down and hit that trail. And after you shot, he was coming right down at me. And then all of a sudden I heard him wheel.
I thought you said there was two deer in there.
No, it was only one deer. It was a buck, same deer.
Thank
Then
you
I
very
heard-
much. Thank you double.
Then I heard you shoot the second shot. I said, holy jeez, he must have got him. I never even knew it was that big. I knew it was a
Pointer.
buck.
They just started a big buck club in New York State, and luckily I won the first place in that.
Well, finish the story, Tom.
Well, anyway, I shot him, and I said a lot of prayers. Well, finally his head and neck come out about 120 yards away, and I slugged him in the neck. But Roy carried him down to the road.
Yeah, I had to pack that deer. It was a beauty. What a beauty.
That was really funny because Tom killed that buck. It was actually a 11-pointer, Tom, but it had a broken brow point and still scored 152.6. It would have been a 160 class buck.
It was
Well, what
163
really,
green.
Really funny is because I killed a buck a few years after that, and I scored exactly the same as his, 152.6, and we're both in a book on the same page. The thing is, his was bigger.
Yeah, if it didn't have that
Yeah,
broken tine,
Yeah, it
just
would have been
think.
160 class, yeah.
Yeah, that's when there was deer there.
Yeah.
Seems to be the common themes in these stories is there's plenty of shooting, but there's a lot of missing,
A lot
too.
of missing, you said it. We don't practice enough.
So you're not afraid to pour the lead to them
That's
anyway.
right, Speedy area.
That's why I use automatic.
It's funny, when I went from the automatic to a bolt action, I became a halfway decent shot.
Same with me, Roy.
It just made a big difference. That
It did.
like
you don't get that first shot.
I got a gun that I got by accident. Long story. It's a 7mm 08. My brother wanted me to get one for years, and I got this gun and I started hunting with it, and I shot 19 bucks with 20 shots with that gun.
bolt, yeah.
That gun was, it just made a difference. In fact, that Nemesis shot, I told you, facing right at me, the very first buck I killed with that gun was a buck facing right at me.
What rifle you guys use?
What's that?
What do you use for a rifle?
Oh, I use the 7600 carbine, Remington. It's an .6.
That's what I used to use. Yep.
Yeah, they came out. That's when in the 80s, they went to the 7600 from the 760. The earlier ones were the 760s. And the only thing they changed was from the 760 to the 7600 was the bolt in them.
Oh, yours is a pump.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was a semi-automatic.
And they changed the bolt, and that's the only difference. But in the 80s was the real good ones. They continued with that good quality. The bluing, the finish was that gloss DuPont finish. And then, but they only made rifles from 80 to 88, and then in 88 they made the carbine. And I didn't know that. I just was at a gun shop, and I wanted to get one, and there was one there, and it ended up being, it's a first year one, and the only reason you know is because they, their white line spacers in the stocks on them old Remingtons?
Yes.
That one has it, and then the next year they took the white lines out in 89.
Yeah.
The one of the first.
That carbine made a difference, that shorter gun. It just seemed to carry better in the
It
woods.
carries a lot better. It balances better. And,
Yeah.
and
I liked it.
but I didn't start out with that. When I was a kid, I started with a 30-30 Winchester lever like a lot
most
of us
people did, yes.
And then my father's cousin, when I got to, kind of like you got you got to go to hunting lodge, a hunting camp, And I did when I was 16. My father, I kept asking my father to go down. It was his family's cousins and stuff lodge, and my father said, "Nah, you're not old enough yet." I think it was probably the shenanigans that went on there. He didn't want me around it.
Yes.
So,
Truth to tell, huh?
so my great uncle, my father's uncle, my grandfather's brother, we had a family reunion. I think it was our first family reunion when I was 16, and I met the extended family that I never knew. and he invited me to come. He said, "You're going to come down and hunt at the lodge with us." So my father couldn't say no. So he actually let me take, back then, for some reason, they had moved to Portland, and we had the whole Thanksgiving week off from school. It wasn't just the weekend, the whole week we had.
Yeah.
But my father also let me take the first week off.
Oh, boy.
So he toted me down there the first week and dropped me off, and his cousin Stanley kind of took me under his wing and showed me the ropes and what they did down there. So that's how I got going down in there anyways. But
Lee, what do you hunt with?
I've killed most of my big bucks with a 99 Savage, but I've killed them with a few other guns too. But
What caliber?
some 308s and some 250 Savage. But with my 250, I hand load for it because I want heavier bullets. So
Yes.
I hand load 120 grain nozzle petitions. But last year, my dad passed on Veterans Day. His favorite gun was a 99 and 308.
Yeah.
So my dad passed on Veterans Day. I was guiding a client. I rattled in 2 bucks at once. Wow. And I shot it was a big 6. I only had 6 points, but it was 186 pound. And I shot him with a 99 and 308, and my client missed his. So,
Oh, gee.
so I thought it was cool that, a few days after my dad passed away, I shot a nice buck with his favorite gun,
boy,
a
it's a
99
great thing to
Savage
think,
and
isn't it?
308.
What memories, yes.
Yeah, the 30-06 I hunted was my father's. We, I was only 16, I think, and we went from the camp across the Moose River, and we hunted the area where we had our tents. And I had a bet with my father, my rifle, which was at 32 rem, against his rifle for the biggest buck that weekend. So we're across the river, and we're hunting, and we're supposed to meet in this certain area just before dark. So I get there, and there's nobody there. And I'm waiting and waiting, and geez, there's a 2 skid roads are like this around the swamp, and right there is where we're supposed to meet. So I'm standing there waiting and waiting. Geez, all of a sudden on that one skid road, I see a deer go across. So son of a gun, I go, I'm going to run down this trail here. So I got that gun in my... So I start running down the trail. All of a sudden I looked off to my right, and there's that deer. It was a 6-pointer standing there. So I took a couple steps behind a tree, turned around, and I flattened him out. So I dressed him out, and I tried to hang him in a tree, and I went back to the meeting spot. Nothing. Now it's getting dark. What the heck? I said, I'm going to go down to the river where the boats are. They must be down there. I go down there, no boats, nothing. Nobody's there. I found out later they thought I was going to go back and stay at the tent. They left me there.
Boats are on the wrong side of the river now.
So this really happened. I'm standing there. All of a sudden I hear a paddle hit the side, what turned out to be the side of a canoe. Here come 2 guys, and I hey, buddy. And they come over. You want to ride across? Yeah. So I go across, and there's a few of them. And I'm going through the swamp, heading towards the road as fast as I can with my flashlight. All of a sudden, I hear some guy moan, and I look, and there's a guy standing there. He's got 2 rifles under each arm, and he's standing in the soup up to his knees. And he looks at me, he goes, "Oh, you shined your light in my eyes, and I lost the trail," which was baloney. So anyway, I take off. I got to catch these guys. They're going to leave me. They were already gone. I didn't realize that. So I go all the way up to the road, and I walked all the way down to the Red River. What is that, about 5 miles?
Quite a ways,
Before those guys caught up to me. Then they gave me a ride out.
Wow.
And then I walked into camp, and they're all playing cards. And I was cocky because I got a deer, you know. I said, "Yeah, you left me out there, you son of a bitch." What the, swearing. "Hey, watch your mouth." But he did. He gave me his rifle. Because he didn't get one. He gave me that 30-06. I used it for years. But semi-automatic, you pull up and you're going to spray the area. When I got the bolt action.
You had to make your shot count.
Yeah.
The first shot especially.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Yes.
It did. And it's so flat shooting, too. That 30-06, 180 grain, you kind of lobbed them in. This thing is just sap.
Well, my father's cousin, ended up at the end of that first week I went there. He gave me a rifle to use because they sat in the morning. It was like old reverted farmland on that mountain. It was all woods, but some little fields. And they used to sit in the morning and sit in the evening and make little drives during the day. That was the method they hunted.
Yes.
But anyways, I never even really had, or my father never had a scope either, but he let me use a 721 Remington bolt action. It was the one before the 700s. And it had a 1.5 to 4.5 Weaver scope with a post. And when I got my eye on that,
I love that.
I go,
post.
man, this is going to be good because you could shoot in a pretty dim light with a scope.
Yeah.
I like the post.
So he ended up the end of the week, he said, take that rifle with you. And I go, I can't take a rifle. It's yours. He said, take it with you. He gave me that rifle.
How about that? Yeah.
And then I hunted with that. That was a 270.
Yeah.
And I hunted that with that until I bought that in, say, 88, that pump gun. But I shot my first tracking buck with that, and I shot my first 200-pound tracking buck. I had shot one actually down at the lodge there that weighed 205, but it wasn't like in the big woods.
Yeah.
And then my first big woods one I shot with that, and then after that it was, once I got the pump, I got tired of getting my scope up there. It hardly ever the sun comes out in November up our way.
Yeah.
And it's damp and stuff, and it was my scope's either fogged up or the raindrops in it or snow in it. I got aggravated because when that time comes and you ain't got time to wipe snow and stuff.
Yeah.
So
That pump action's a good
yeah,
action.
and I put the peep sight and never
Went
looked
back to the peep site, huh?
Yeah, I went to the peep, and then actually the next year I bought another one. I said I'll put a scope on that because I still had that in my mind. So I bought another one and I put that same scope on it. Never killed. I lugged it a couple years on the good weather days. Never killed a buck with it. I killed them all in my peep sight from then on.
That's good. You get used to it, something you like.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's go back for a minute because I know we talked, especially in the first episode when you guys started. But so you guys, your father was tracking, taught you to track.
Yes.
Both of his fathers?
Got started.
Yeah, I followed my father.
Yeah, and they were tracking back before anybody tracked, really.
My father did a lot of circling, track and circle.
He did, boy. He shot some nice
My
bucks.
father and his father his father was my father's nephew.
Yeah.
And there was 10 years difference in their age. 10 years? Or was it
Yeah.
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
So they were a great team together. And one guy'd track, the other guy'd circle. They killed a lot of bucks
They
like
did well. They did well, really.
that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There was always a deer hanging in a tree at our house.
Yeah, and it's a little, it's like that stuff is what gets passed down, right?
Yes, it's true.
Because when, we've talked to a lot of the guys from the Midwest, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and there's hardly anybody that tracks. And there is a few that you'll find them
Yes.
people here and there, but it's like it never caught on like it did
In the
out
Northeast.
east.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of a natural thing to do. I mean, you
Got
can
snow most of the time in the last part of the season, anyways.
What Paz say? Like pages of a book.
That's right. He said, following the buck tracks like reading the pages of a book. He said, every step you go, every place, he said, it's like another part of the page, another part of the
Yeah,
story.
I've heard Hal say that same
That's what I
thing.
say. They're writing their story in the snow for you.
Yes,
you just
that's
have to
right.
read it and interpret
so
it.
interesting.
I just happened to think about one buck I killed. In fact, I should have brought the antlers down. Roy had tracked this buck before, and I didn't realize that. He was just telling me
The whole
again
day,
today.
the day before.
The day before, he tracked the same buck. Anyways, I'm driving back into Moose River Plains. I had
I was ahead of you.
you were ahead of me. You
I
saw the
stopped.
track.
Yes, I stopped and I was thinking of taking a track. And you said, go ahead. I'll go ahead. Talk me right out of it. Like, what?
I had his son with me, and we were going to hunt this one particular spot, and I was supposed to meet back at a certain time. Anyways, I come across this track. The first time, the buck and the doe crossed the road this way. Went back a little further, they crossed the road this way. Went a little further, they crossed the road this way. I finally said to his son, I said, Tom, take this truck and park it someplace. I said, I'll meet you tonight. So anyways, I get out, and I start looking at the tracks. I found out that the first track we made was the last track that the buck and doe made, was the last track. So I didn't find that out until after I finally got out and looked. So anyway, I start tracking it. I didn't go 25 yards. I looked, and there's a doe standing there. She's 35 yards away. And she sees me. She got to see me. So, I walked right up there. All of a sudden, she's looking around, looking like nothing ever happened. I'm sure you guys have seen that. When a doe is harassed a lot by a buck, they're kind of nonchalant. They don't want to know nothing. They just want to rest and eat or whatever. That's just the way she was. I could tell she saw me, but she just stand there, nibble here, nibble there a little bit. I said, that buck's got to be in here somewhere. So anyways, I stood there probably, 5 minutes at least. And all of a sudden, I look over to the right, and you know how the beech leaves, how they hang on to the trees, the beech. There's a buck or a deer standing right there by these beech leaves, by this beech tree. Okay. Yeah, I get talking like this. Thanks, Roy. Anyways, I look, and here's this deer standing down there, and I said, gee, that should be the buck, but I can't tell. What the heck? How am I going to tell? So I have to look down between the tree roots to see this deer. So I got way down, and I keep looking, and and no, I couldn't tell. I looked through the scope. I only had a 1.5 to 4 power scope. I looked through the scope. I can't tell. Pretty soon, like that, it's got to be the buck. Boom! I pull up and shoot, and it wheels around, takes off. I think I shot 2 more shots at it. Anyways, I get over there, and one of my favorite tricks, a deer standing looking at me, I hit him in the back leg. I don't know how I did that, but I hit him in the back leg. Anyways, there's a lot of blood there, and I must have hit him one of the other shots because there's blood all over the place. So anyways, I'll make a longer story longer. I trailed him down there, and the blood trail was so thick that you couldn't miss it. I mean, took some pictures of it even. And I got down there, and the buck was so unique, at about a 13-inch spread and 13 points. And I should have brought the horns down so we could see him. But anyhow, it was just kind of a different thing. Yeah. And I'm about 150 yards from the road. His son and a bunch of other guys are down below talking, and they hear all the shooting up there. And one of them said, your son says, gee, my uncle's up there. So anyways, he hops in a truck, drives up to me, and he's standing there, and he hollers my name. And I said, yeah, Tom, down here. So I never had to drag the buck or anything. He come down and dragged me up to the truck. It was only about 150 yards.
The way it's good, yeah.
But yeah. A classic deer.
How long ago was that?
It was, let me see, let me think. I have to think now. Probably about 1980.
Oh, you're a young fellow then.
Yeah, young guy there.
Jim was a great tracker. He comes back to camp one night, and he says, gee, I see a nice buck track crossing the road. Anybody want to go there in the morning with me? Yeah, I'll go with you. So right after breakfast, we head in the road and between 7th Lake Mountain and Fawn Lake Mountain. Or was it Fawn Lake?
Mitchell's.
No, couldn't have been Mitchell's. No. 7th Lake Mountain, and what's that ridge right across the...
Mount Tom?
Yeah. Where shot this buck?
This buck.
Oh, that's...
Wildcat.
Yeah, Wildcat.
Yeah. So anyway, she says, well, you want to track or do you want to circle ahead and watch? Well, we always want to track, So I said, I'll track. He gave me the option. So I take the deer and started heading up to 7th Lake Mountain. Makes a big circle. Comes right back, crosses the road. And guess who's on the track now? I said, that pot liquor, he probably knew it crossed him. He put me on the wrong side of the track. So I pushed him, and I come out to him, and deer had already gone through. So he says, okay, you take the track now, I'll make a circle. We do it 2 or 3 times.
We did it about 3 times.
Yeah, up further and further up the mountain. And finally, it was my turn to track. So there was a little creek come down through there and some green stuff. And I'm tracking. I said, this buck is close, following the doe. All of a sudden, I hear a noise, and I look, and here comes a spike horn, down off a little ridge. Holy jeepers, so this isn't a deer. I ain't tracking a spike horn. I know it's bigger than that. All of a sudden, I see Jim comes right behind the spike horn. So I waved to him. So he says, I'm going ahead. So I go ahead. What'd you do? Make a circle then?
Yeah.
I probably only went another 150 yards or so, and the buck and the doe cut up a little bit of ridge, that same ridge that he was on. And Spikehorn had run right down there, and he went up the ridge too. So he's trying to cut in this big buck's territory, So I just snuck nice and easy up to the top of the ridge, and I got about that much. And a deer went. I heard a deer go. I said, I wonder if that's a doe or is that Spikehorn? I stood there looking for a little bit and looking. All of a sudden, I catch a movement, and here's this buck right here. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, can you see that? It's a 9-pointer.
Nice buck.
Big heavy rack, a
Yeah.
short point, but a big heavy rack. There was 2 big bucks in there that day. I went back and tracked another one after I left Tom, because we took some pictures of that deer there. I went and tracked another one, got on the other side of the mountain, ran out of snow. So I never did catch up with it.
So I shot him, one shot in the neck.
Yeah, that was a nice buck too.
That was close. It's a good thing it wasn't 100 yards away. I would have missed.
I got a good question for you guys. Your brothers hunted together your whole life. Did you guys ever shoot a buck on the same day? Both of you get a good buck on the same day?
Yes.
Let's hear that story.
Yes. Okay, we had 2 different outfits.
2 tents.
2 different tents. We used to spend time in one or time in the other, whatever we decided to do. Anyways, we were at the one that was the furthest back. It was like 8 miles to that one, wasn't it, Tom? Yeah. It was right on the top of a mountain, and the water run both ways. Right where we were, the water run to the east on one side and to the west on the other side. Anyways, I said, I'm going back to the other tent today. So they said, okay, we'll be back there tonight. So I got up early in the morning, got my pack on with all my gear, and I started heading back, and there was a trail that went back there. So I'm following the trail there, and about 10 minutes to 7, all of a sudden I looked, and this nice buck steps right out into the trail. Boom, I pull up the chute and drops him right there. Anyhow, I gutted him out and hung him up in a tree, got back to the camp, and it must have been 6 o'clock at night by the time you guys come back. And my father says, Did you shoot a buck? He said, did you shoot a deer today? And I said, yeah, Pa, I shot a 10-pointer right off of the trail there. He says, shake hands with your brother. He killed a 10-pointer too. So tell him that story, Tom.
Yeah. It was over by Black River. It was quite a ways from the tent. Anyway, I'm leaves, hunting on leaves. You're tracking. You could track a deer on leaves for a ways, but if you got up with another deer, it would be hard. When they're running, it's easy to track them. But anyway, make a long story short, I'd heard some shooting. So I got down by the Black River, and I hit a skid road. I was following a skid road, and I come to a spot. Man, there's rubs from this year to rubs from last year, rubs from the year before, all around. I said, but this is a buck's territory. He's been hanging right on in here.
Tom, we should define a skid road. Probably people don't realize what we're talking about.
Skid road is where they skidded out the logs with the caterpillar.
That's what we call it, Maine.
Yeah, all right. I didn't know if I just thought we'd clarify that.
It wasn't a main one. It was a secondary one.
Yeah.
Some people call them twitch trails, but it's a skidded trail.
Yeah, all right.
So I stopped there and looking at all them rubs. And I looked through the evergreen tree, and I said, boy, if I didn't know better, I'd say there was a deer looking right back at me, maybe 40 yards away. So I pulled myself over and look. I said, this is the buck, and he's looking right back, and got his head twisted like that. Got his head twisted like that, looking back at me. So I pull up, and I try to shoot right through the evergreen tree. Boom! I shoot, and he takes off. He runs right across the skid trail. Boom! I shoot again. Boom! I shoot again. I missed him clean with the first shot, hit him with 2 shots running. It was a 10.
It was
nice
a 10-pointer.
buck,
Yeah, it was a nice buck. What did that weigh, 187, Tom, or something like that?
One weighed, I called 2 10-pointers that year. One weighed 187, the other one weighed 190 dressed.
Yeah.
Bigger than yours, Jim?
Yes, heavier. I think mine was 180. Yeah, 180 even, but mine scored more.
It did, too.
That's what counts out here, right?
Yeah, we don't care if they weigh 115 if they got big horns.
But there were deer. You could expect to see deer. And
Oh, any place you went.
Oh, yeah, I can remember, geez, jumping a buck, not getting a shot at it, heck, and go find another one.
Yeah,
But
right.
the state took care of that.
They did.
I don't know if it'll ever come back the same. I just don't know.
Oh, I remember he was talking about that, and Jim had mentioned about seeing 15 bucks in one year. So we were kind of chatting a little bit about, how they've come back around. Our cutting we lost the deer yards and it went down. But now, through keeping the coyotes down, our deer pop, and not all northern Maine, but my particular area's got quite a bit better. But I actually saw it was either 12 or 13 bucks I saw last fall.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, and 4 of them were real big ones.
Or good buck.
2 of them was with when I took my grandson Rylan. I don't even carry my gun, and trying to get him because he shot his first one tracking a couple years ago himself, and I was filming, but he isn't. He's trying to get. He's afraid of missing, so he doesn't. I said, Rylan, you go. I don't want to wound one. I go. You're never going to know where you hit until you start shooting. So,
That's right.
Get them weeping first.
Yeah, there was 2
That's
of them.
right.
There was 2 of them that were like, we were hunting together and it was bare ground, just still hunting. And 2 weeks in a row, we saw these. I mean, I wouldn't even have thought twice about great big ones.
No kidding.
And he never pulled the trigger on either
Yeah,
one.
you miss every buck you don't shoot
I
at.
told him, I said,
That's for sure.
you got to start shooting, Rylan. And he actually saw, I think he saw last year, I think he said he saw 7 bucks. He passed up 2 spike horns.
Man, that's great. Holy smokes, they got good hunting there then.
How old is he?
15. Yeah.
Start him young.
He's getting into it. He likes it.
Yeah.
So.
Good. You know, kids that hunt and fish, they normally don't get in trouble. You know, those kids that spend their time in the outdoors, they turn out
That's true. Right?
good kids. You don't see them getting in trouble.
They're the least likely kids to commit a violent crime
Right.
with a gun, too.
That's true. Good point.
I believe that 100%. I just by associating with my grandkids and their friends and all that, the ones that like the outdoors and do outdoorsy things are generally pretty good. The other ones,
Yeah, that's
I loved going
him.
up to camp in the woods when we were young, all of us.
Couldn't wait to go. Of course, they didn't have television or nothing when we were young, you know. So it was the big thing was to go to the big woods.
Yeah, for sure.
right,
So,
and it's so much better for them.
I got a little bit of a question on a topic that we haven't touched. Like, when you guys, if you started hunting in the Adirondacks around 1950, everybody wants to talk about the weather now and climate change and all that stuff. Well, we go in, up and down with weather patterns and stuff, but I can remember, I'm old enough to remember in the 70s, we had some years where it'd be brutally cold, but we wouldn't have much for snow. And then in the 80s, we had some big snow weather. And then around 2000, around 2008, we had 2 or 3 winters with tons of snow, and that hurt our deer herd. What's the changes like? Did you have more snow in the 50s and 60s and less in the 70s? Or just touch on that. You've been through it all.
Tom may remember this, but a bunch of us hunted together. It was usually there was 10 or 12 of us in the camp, and we'd always plan on the 3rd week of the season because we usually had snow. So we'd all plan on that. But
what week was that? The 3rd week of November.
third week, it would be the 3rd week of the season, probably the middle of November. The 15th, they used to figure the 15th. They used to figure the 15th was the peak of the rut. That's what
Pretty
they
much
figured
same
at
in
that
Maine.
time.
It stopped.
Yeah. The one thing that did happen and made a big difference for us, the winters of 70, 71, 71, 72, 72, 73, we had 3 of the worst winters we ever had in all the years, and it was brutal. We remember that one year, Tom, I think you killed the last buck with the last day of the season that we hunted there. And it was the 3rd buck that we killed, and that was all. Between 6 of us, we only killed 3 bucks. And it was just unbelievable. There was hardly any deer in the woods. I mean, even today, the deer are in groups, and the groups are usually 3 or 4 miles apart. That's why the deer travel so much, traveling all over the
Another
woods.
thing we found out, too, we can't put the miles on, and we did, and that makes a big difference.
But back to the weather, we used to have lot of snow. I can remember the banks on the side of the Limekill Lake Road.
That's true.
Like this.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of years, other than this year.
This year was a real bad year with snow.
Did you ever have years where you actually had to get out of your camp because there was so much snow you had to leave early, or because of too much snow?
Tom, did we? I don't think we did.
Never had to leave early, but we had some
probably
rough
should've.
times. We had I remember breaking tent because of the snow so bad.
A couple of different years, Lee. I remember we had 14 or 15 inches of snow the first day of the season. And usually it would be gone the next week, but it was just so unusual. I remember I belonged to a club up there. It was a Kempshall Mountain Club. And there wasn't a lot of big hunters up there, so that was the reason why I joined. And we had the opening day that I hunted, there was 16 inches of snow on the ground.
Oh, that's
and then
unheard of.
And it started thawing besides, so everything is dripping, you know. Yeah. And I can remember I didn't go very far in the woods, and I come where two bucks were fighting. So I said, well, I'll track one of them, and I tried to pick out the track that I figured would be the easiest. I tracked that deer, jumped it. My hands were so cold I couldn't get the safe off. So I said, nah, I'll leave him and go back to the other one. I tracked the other one, the same thing, jumped that, same thing, couldn't get the safe off. So 2 big bucks, and I wasn't able to shoot at either one.
Yeah. So when was the point when you got, like, you're talking about your tent camps back in there? When did you stop doing that? I know, obviously, as you got older, it probably
He still does it.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, we tended last year.
No kidding.
My 2 grandsons both killed bucks in there.
In the same tents, or?
Yeah, out of the same tent. This was right on the Moose River. Yeah. Before we were over the mountain, we used to drive in to Squaw Lake and Indian Lake and
it's 23 miles it was over the roads.
And we'd hike in then, and anywhere from a mile to 2 or 3 miles, and put a tent. And they did too. Okay. Sometimes we tented 2 tents right next to each other. Yeah. Matter of fact, one of them caught on fire one night. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I was in it.
Yeah, your father was telling us a story about hunting.
That's when you're glad your buddy's got a tent beside you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So are you still walking in to get into your tent?
Yeah, it's not far though. It's about if you follow the trail, it's about 1.5 miles. And then
you cross the river.
Yeah, I get you.
But the last day that they were in there, I wasn't there. My 2 grandsons were in there, and one of them shot a 6-pointer. And so instead of taking the tent down, which they were supposed to do, they wanted to get the deer out. He wanted to get the deer. It wasn't a big deer. It was only a small buck. And they spent all kinds of time getting the deer out. So when it's time to take the tent down, the road closes at the end of the deer season. And by rule, we're supposed to take that tent down. Supposed to take that tent down by rule. Otherwise, you're in violation of the conservation law. So we had such a wet spring, we couldn't get back in there. You can't take a 4-wheeler back in there. They don't open the road till usually Memorial Day weekend. And one thing or another, I kept saying, you got to go back in. I got a bad knee now. I can't go. So just this past weekend, was this past weekend or 2 weeks ago? This past weekend, They went in and got the tent down. We went in February.
The snow didn't take it down?
Which it did. The snow took it down.
But you got to clean everything out. You can't leave anything
and
there.
so
that ruined the
we
tent?
couldn't get it out. We couldn't get it out of the snow. Some of it was still sticking up, and others was buried. And we just couldn't get it out. We tried shoveling it off and so on. Anyway, they get it down. They get the poles out, and they're starting to clean up the place. And the ranger come in and caught him.
Oh, jeez.
Gave him a ticket.
He said, "You should have called me." And he said, "Yeah, I guess I should have." But one thing and another, we just didn't get it out. So,
well, as far as the tent was going, my Uncle Dick, he had some heart problems, and he had his second from last heart attack, and he started hunting out of the camp. So I started hunting out of the camp with him. Geez, I realized, holy crap, this is great hunting. I can jump in my vehicle, I can go hunt this area. I can jump in my vehicle and go hunt that area, and I can be back at this nice camp. What am I, nuts?
I did the same thing, Roy. I did the same thing. Them guys tell all the time. I said, I'd rather spend my night in the camp with electric lights and the heat. It was not
only that, but you're not confined to an area where there's a bunch of good hunters rubbing out all the deer.
He shot a nice 10-pointer, though. It scored a 135 or something.
What was that, Tom?
Tom, the third.
Oh, yeah.
Shot it out of the tent. That was a nice buck.
Yeah.
And he wounded one the year before. Got away on him.
Yeah, one the year before was the record book buck, wasn't it? Scored over 140.
Oh, yeah, the one Tommy the third got?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That one he didn't shoot out of the tent, though. He was up in Minerva.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
So how old are your grandsons then?
I got so many of them. Which one you talking about?
The ones you hunt with.
Well, let's see. Tom is what, 40?
Yeah.
Tom the third is 40.
Yeah.
He's got 2 brothers that are hunters.
Yeah. Mark and James.
Yeah.
Robert hunts also.
Not much, though.
No.
Chris Massett, he hunts. Who else? I think that's about it.
There's about 5 of them, 6 of them maybe that hunt. That's the rest of them.
Yeah, it's surprising. You figure that the whole crew would be hunting, but I don't know.
They're
like-
going to be good, though. Hell, we'll probably be gone, and you'll be hearing stories about those boys. They're really, some of them are
Yeah.
going to be good.
It's like two of my grandsons. I take them out, and holy geez, they're just naturals. First time, one 14 years old, take him out the first day, he shoots a buck. And the other one, 15 years old, I take him out a couple days later, he shoots a buck. Wow. Then I take him out next year, he shoots a buck. Now he's got a girlfriend. That all changes. You know. It all
The
changes.
rut has started.
Yeah, that's what that fellow we were talking about, Stoney, Malin Stone. That's what he told me. Roy, you're a good man until you find your first woman and get your Social Security number. Then it's downhill from there. That isn't the words he used, but
Yeah, the women never affected me when I was a teenager. The girls would chase me around and stuff.
my wife's quite
They wanted
supportive.
me to come over on Saturdays and stuff like all through the winter. I rabbit hunted we had a 6-month rabbit hunting season, October 1st to March 31st.
Snowshoes?
Yeah, and that's what I did. My grandfather had the dog.
Oh, I used to do a lot
and
of
we
it
went
too.
every weekend, so I didn't hang out with the girls too much, and for surely not November
Oh.
ever.
I'm not saying anything bad. My wife is really supportive of my hunting. She likes it.
It was funny. My wife was too, but Tom's wasn't. He used to get poison pen letters in his pack, and I'd get love letters in mine.
That's like the story. That's like the story. The guy said, "My girlfriend told me if I go hunting next Saturday, she's gonna leave. Boy, I'm gonna miss her."
Ain't it the truth? Well, my wife did hunt. I'll just hold that picture up there. There was 2 bucks we tagged up in the Newcomb area. There was a hunting San Antonio Reserve. We hunted there how many years, Tom? Probably from 75 to 80.
About that,
Yeah,
yeah.
about 5
It
years.
was a what? Only reserve?
San Antonio Preserve, it was called.
Oh, that was the name of it.
San Antonio. It was a mountain there. It's the second highest mountain in the state. It was.
Used to be next to this chunk of land that Anna and Archer Huntington donated to New York State, but they specified that they had to do the logging. And you could go along the ridge and you could see the difference in the land.
Exactly.
And you'd hunt along that line every once in a while. A buck would push a doe out into the hardwoods,
So that was the best hunting, probably.
Yeah.
It was. It was
very
great.
good.
It was really good
I
for
shot
all
a
years.
buck 11 and a half years old there. Big old buck, yeah.
Oldest I ever shot was 10 and a half.
It was 11. No, the guy did the cross section.
Oh.
That's what Hardendorf said. It was 11 and a half.
Well, you know what? I was going to ask you about that because back years ago, when we took our deer always to the tagging station, and they tag it and they'd pull a tooth, and they would
Yeah, that's
age
what
it.
they did with this one.
And they quit, and they did every tooth, and then I don't know if they run out of money or whatever, but starting sometime it was probably early 90s. Then they started taking one like every 5th tooth. It was random.
Yeah,
So
every
you didn't
fifth.
know if they were going to take your tooth
Oh.
or not.
Yeah, yours are not.
And then we never knew, like anybody else that did it. So they didn't take your tooth. You wouldn't know. So my first couple of big ones I found out because they took the tooth.
Yes.
And
And they let you know. They'd let you know it.
They'd send you a little card and say your deer was aged at whatever. The first one I had, I think it was the first one that I remember because they might have not always done it. They might have just started doing it and did it a couple of years and whatever. But I remember the two that I remember distinctly. One on the cover of my first book was 7.5, and then I think the one I shot a year after that was 6.5. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know any other than that. I would look at the teeth and say
By where?
Yeah,
and that's not accurate.
Yeah, so I never, everybody, but now I guess there's a place you can send one.
There is.
I think they charge you $15 or something.
$20 it is.
$20.
Yeah.
But I've never had one done other than those two.
Yeah, the taxidermist is what did mine. He pulled a tooth and sent it out. He's the one that told me.
Yeah.
We aged it at 10 and a half, right?
Yeah.
The thing that's funny about that too is in Maine, they don't really care about the deer anymore. But every bear and every moose you kill, they got
Yeah,
to
they
have
take the teeth out of all of them.
Yeah. We have a friend of ours that is a measurer for the Big Buck Club, and he measures for all the Boone and Crockett, Pope and Young, and whatever else there is. He measures for all of them. So he'll ask you when you bring up deer in to be measured if you want to send a tooth in, and he'll send it in and everything for you. You just have to pay for it. The guy's really good. It's Jimmy Dowd.
When you say tagging station, what is that? You mean
It's they call it
your
register.
deer isn't tagged when you shoot it?
No, they check it out.
We have to bring it to a store and tag it at a store.
All our big game, deer, moose, they quit on the turkeys, but the bear, deer, and moose, it's called registering it. You put your tag. We don't have a tag per se like on your license. Yeah. You pull it off and it's your tag. Yeah. In Maine, all you do, it used to be on the old days on our licenses, you did have a tag that had your license number on it. Yes. And they quit doing that. It was those were nice licenses. They were like wax.
Yeah, we had the same thing, right.
And they went to, basically now you can buy a license online. It's just you print off a piece of paper.
Ours just started
and
doing
now
that.
You can just have a picture of it on your phone and it's good enough.
Really?
Yeah. But anyways, you always, when they went to that system, you had to make out, they do have these tags, they're random, and they're a good material, and you just write your name and address and your, if it's the year, and if it's bear, deer, or moose. It's a standard tag. It's just blank, and you fill it out. And then if you don't have that, you can write it on a piece of paper. You just have to attach something that it's your deer, and that is your transportation tag, they call it, to get from where you are in the woods to the registration place, which is a store. Or,
how many of those places do they have? There's a lot of them? Or?
Every town with any size has got one.
Yeah, and some of the down around the farm country, there might be 2 stores within a few miles that have them because they get a lot more deer. But up north, it's usually the central towns. Like there's one in Jackman, the Forks, Bingham. Like we're going up the highway towards Jackman. There's Bingham, Forks, Jackman. They're like 30 miles apart. And then you go east 30 miles, there's one in Rockwood. And then another 20 miles to Greenville, there's one in Greenville. Then up to Cacagio. So they're spread out, but the law is in Maine,
you can't go buy one.
You can't go buy one. Like if you got your deer and you're driving on your way home or wherever you're going, you tag it at the first.
He'd be in trouble.
Yeah, the first place you got to tag it at. Some do. Some places don't have a scale. Most of them have a scale because what that does is it brings people to the store and they might buy a 6-pack of beer or soda or something, and sometimes people hang around the tagging stations. If you, excuse me, like Bishop's store in Jackman, it's right on the main drag. There's only one road basically in there, and the scale is on the side of the store. And if somebody's driving by, everybody always looks. When you drive by the store, you see if somebody's, and if you see a big rack hanging there or sticking out of people pull
I don't know
in.
what the heck New York State did. Now they print you out. It's on a piece of paper. Yeah. You can take it home and copy 20 copies of the darn thing.
They're talking about doing that in Maine. I think it's cost effective, and I hope they don't get it in Maine because it's people want to see that. Plus, it just, like nowadays, it's just going to create, like there's going to be people that are going to just drive home and go shoot another deer.
That's what I'm worried. Yeah, I guarantee it's going to happen. New York State don't care. They want to kill all the deer.
And kill us after that.
Yeah, they don't like hunters.
Yeah, they're slowly choking you out, believe me.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You guys know.
Snowmobilers are taking over the Adirondacks.
Yeah.
You want to hear a funny story?
Yeah.
This little off of hunting. His brother, his oldest brother, his nickname was Butch, Ray Hart. And he was the funniest guy. He could have made a million as a comedian. He was just a funny guy.
He was a natural comedian.
Anyway, he goes up to go back fishing. And he ends up in the bar, of course. He had big, thick glasses he wore, and he was funny, always laughing. He was a couple of years younger than me, and him and I hung around together for a while. So he's in Quebec, and he's drinking, and he makes friends with this Frenchman. Say his name was Pierre. So they get half bubbles, so he finally says to Pierre, "Hey, Pierre, where's all the women in this place anyway?" And his nickname was Butchie. "Monsieur Bouchy, take my wife, please." He turns around and look, and there's this woman. She's 5 foot tall, about 350 pounds, no teeth. He says, "No thanks."
The same guy that he's talking about, Roy's older brother, they were drinking down in the village there one time. There's a place where they, like all the small towns, they have booze joints all over the place. Anyways, this one place that they stopped, there's a whole bunch of them going to stop in there. So his brother's the last one coming in. So they're walking in, and there's a step up. Well, he had kind of a bad leg anyway, so he had a little trouble. He ended up taking the step and flop right down on his face there. And everybody sitting in the bar, they hear the noise, and they look around, and he says, "How do you like me so far?"
He didn't even have to buy a drink.
Never bought a drink. That you were right, weren't you, Roy?
Yeah.
I should have had you tell the
All
story.
right, seeing as though we're on funny stories, I went for a moose hunting trip when I was a kid with my dad and a friend of his, and we went up to Quebec, and we went to this town called Sarnia, and we did hunting on our own for a couple of days. Didn't do good, so we went to this main store in this little village, and I remember it was in the square, and they went into the general store and they got hooked up with some Indian guides, but we had to wait for them, and they came with a bus and picked up all the Indian guides, and we had to follow them to their village. Anyway, I'm sitting in my father's van, had a Ford van with a big windshield, and geez, I'm sitting there, all of a sudden somebody come crashing out of a door across the square from me, and he looked right at me. So, geez, I looked down and pretended I was reading. So he comes over to the window, and I couldn't understand him. He kept saying something, and what it turned out to be is that "You got 50 cents?" So I give him the 50 cents, and he right back into that bar. So now we follow this bus 60 miles on this dirt road to this village. It's getting dark. We had a 14-foot boat with an 18-horse motor on, and we get two guides, Hench and Isaac and Saigon, their names were. And then the other guy was his brother, Pete. Gospel truth. So anyway, we hook up their two canoes, and it's dark, and we go way along this river, and we come to their little trapping hut, a real small little hut. So we go in there, and everybody's milling around, and I pump up our lantern and get it lit, and the guy that walks in, it was the guy I gave the 50 cents to. So now I was the cook, so I cook everything, and then when I clean up, I save the rinse water for the next morning. You throw all your dishes in the rinse water. Now it's the middle of the night. These are Indian guys. They don't have anything. So I hear a bunch of clinging and clanking, and I shine my light. I look, and there's Pete. He's got the rinse water. Blip, 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 blip.
Trying to put the fire out.
He got up the next morning and paddled back to the village. Hench and Isaac, Saigon, and Pete.
Can't make that stuff up.
You can't. You can't.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
I never even saw a moose. But, we had a good time. It's quite an experience up there.
Yeah, not as many as they used to be, but there's still
Yeah, we're starting to get more in New York State.
Maine has actually got the highest concentration of moose per square mile in North America.
Really?
No kidding. Even better than Newfoundland?
I don't know about that, but that's I looked at a chart of it.
Maybe in the United States.
Yeah, maybe the United States.
Okay, yeah, contingent.
That would make sense.
But I know there's more than even like British Columbia and all out
No
in there.
kidding.
Because there's so much land, they're spread out more.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got.
I'm sure back at the height, we had more than any place anywhere.
Is that right?
was the height.
Yeah.
Probably back in
the
late
90s. 90s and early 2000, we had a big die off. I bet we had at least 150,000 moose in Maine back then. They were a nuisance. They were in the way.
No
You'd
kidding.
be deer hunting, you'd be tracking a buck, and he'd come in through, and all of a sudden you look and there's big bulls all around you up in the mountain.
No kidding.
And if you spooked them bucks learned they'd walk through the moose and go 100 yards and lay down because they knew when the moose would spook.
It
that
was time to
cue.
go.
And they're just dumb animals.
And to this day, I still, if I'm tracking a buck and I come upon a moose that I see and the buck track's going by it, I just back up and go all the way around because them moose spook worse than a deer do.
They do. They travel.
Well, they got a
Man,
good
did they
advantage.
travel.
That's one thing.
Yeah, they'll,
Yeah.
for some reason, after their rut, when you get into the deer season, they might run for a mile, even a cow or something. I mean, they charge off and you can hear them hammering
Crashing
through
the woods. Yeah.
And the deer know.
So how's the population now?
It's good. It's still a high population. I mean, yeah, it's a good moose hunting
Not
stuff
like it
still,
used to be, though.
but it's not. There was too many. Now there's actually still too many.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
there really is too many. It's the population's high, and of course there's moose all over Maine, but mainly the
Do
northern
they have
half.
that blood-sucking disease like they have in Vermont?
Yeah, the ticks. It's
Yeah,
a winter
ticks,
tick.
yeah.
That's what caused the die-off, and that's Mother's Nature way of controlling those populations.
Yeah,
But,
that's true.
yeah.
But I remember I hunted with Vermont with a friend of mine there, and he shot a young calf there, and they had a way of checking them. I don't know if they do it in Maine, but they take a comb and they comb
Because
four
they're
different spots.
almost microscopic in the
Yes.
fall.
Yeah, they're the
But they count them,
dangerous
and
ones.
there's like hundreds of thousands of them on the moose. I couldn't believe it. They suck the blood out of them, and they end up moose are one of the animals that don't groom themselves, and they don't groom each other, and so these things get on them, and they don't come off.
Yeah.
They suck the blood out of them.
They're a terrible thing, those ticks.
Yeah, I was going to mention something to you guys. You might have heard of them, but I ended up having a guy come to the lodge last year deer hunting. He lives in North Carolina now, but he's from somewheres up here by Watertown, somewheres up here. And his father and some buddies were probably the first ones from New York to go hunt in Maine. They went over and hunted. Somehow they heard about the vast North Maine woods up there. And they put a trip together back in it was early 60s. And that North Maine woods in the 60s, they were still putting the wood down the rivers. There weren't hardly any roads. So they wrote to back then it was all paper companies owned the land. Now it's big timber companies. But it was all paper companies. So somehow they knew whatever paper company it was, they found a place up there because that North Maine Woods Association hadn't even started. It was just separate paper company land, and they wanted to get permission to hunt there. So they said, yeah, it's no problem. And they drove, of course, from there. They went through Canada and then came into Maine from Quebec.
From the west side. Yeah.
But they were like a kids in a candy store. That was the heyday when it was being opened up, and it was still. But he has stories, and he sent me pictures and articles. Well, what they did, I think he said there was I think 6 of them, and they drove from there in a because the pickups end with single cab, 2-wheel drive pickup. With all their gear, they got a tent and all the gear, 6 of them. And so probably 3 rode in the front, 3 in the back with a tarp over them, all the way over there. And they all killed a buck and they killed a bear. They killed 6 bucks and a bear.
Now they got to take them
Now
out.
they got to take them out. They had to go into Quebec. And back then the border was nothing. There was no.
Yeah, right. No
they
problem.
Just drove over.
Yes.
They found a garage or something in Canada, and they had this guy weld them a steel rack to the back of the pickup and a platform on the top, and they put all those Now, can you imagine the weight of that pickup?
Holy smoke.
And drove all the way back, and then they started telling people the stories, and one of the local newspapers
Picked it up.
got wind of it, and they interviewed him and stuff. I actually have that article. He sent me the
Boy,
article.
that would be something. Yeah.
But that started, he said the next year when they went back, there was all kinds of people from New York up there because when they read it in the paper, they told them exactly where they went. They went in this gate, they went here, and now their whole honey hole they found was crowded with people.
What did they think?
They gave us, me and Joe and Steve, the same thing. We always told exactly where we hunted and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, I'm seeing all kinds of people from Vermont, people from Maine are hunting in the same area there, because we wrote it and told them where it was.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, this is what it is.
Once you kill the deer, that deer's dead.
That's right.
I always said they're chasing dreams. Yeah,
That's true.
One year there was, back when I was talking about that, remember I told about that 200-pound board on the store where they put down your name, where you were from, your town and state, the weight, probably the antler points, and the township you shot it in. Yeah. Well, everybody lied. All the locals lied. They didn't want nobody to know what township.
Yeah. Yes.
But there was some one of the outfitters from town that lived out of town a ways, and he always had a bunch of guys coming up. But they ended up shooting, I think that year, they ended up by the end of the year, they'd killed like 4 over 200. And they tagged them all in the same township, which wasn't the township they got them in.
They got them off there.
But I did put mine down. It's the first one I shot in that township. I go, well, it ain't going to make a pattern. So the one I shot, that's the one I shot that was 260 that year.
Wow.
And then one of my hunters shot one at 263, and it was Sandy Bay Township. Wow. And then he tagged all 4. So it's just a little township on the border. Yeah. So there's 6 200-pound bucks tagged in that township. The next year, you couldn't find a place to park up there. Well, my mentality is, and was even then, I'm like, if you see a small area and they took 6 big bucks out of there, you probably better go find somewhere else.
That's right, because the big ones are gone. That's true, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Time flies. There are great stories in the Adirondacks and any place you hunt.
Yeah.
One thing we all have in common is our love for the outdoors, and you usually meet, there are very few hunters that you meet that you don't like.
I know.
It's true.
I feel bad for people that don't get that feeling we get.
Well, it's our common thread that binds us all, right?
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
I was on the first seminar I went to was not the first one, but one of the ones that I thought the most of was hunt stock. When I went there the first year, I could not believe how many good whitetail hunters there were. Yeah. I think about it, we know oodles of whitetail deer hunters, and some of them are just as good, some might be better, I don't know. The whole difference is we talk about it. Yeah. Most of the rest of them just tell each other, and it's
and then there's some whitetail deer hunters have been stumbling around the woods for 35 years and never even seen a whitetail. There are people like that.
But at least they keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a guy from here. This will be the last story, and we'll wrap it up. There's a guy, and I didn't even remember it. I get a lot of messages from people and stuff, and he asked me, he said something about he hunted in the Adirondacks, and he hadn't shot a buck yet. And he just said, do you have any tips on where I might go? He liked to sit. He said, you got any tips on where I might go try to find a spot, he meant by the terrain. And I said, well, any of those ridges of mountains up there in the Adirondacks, you find the saddles through them. I said, that's where they travel through. So, like about a month ago, I get an email from the guy because I didn't recognize his name. He had to say, he said, I'm finally getting to you. He said, last year I emailed you and asked you about that. He said, I shot my first buck in the Adirondacks after 20 years. And he was so proud of it. It was a spike horn. And he took the skull plate and he covered it with orange and he made a plaque. 20 years before he shot his first buck. He was so proud of that buck.
One of the things that really stifles people is your awareness. Like sometimes, you got to pick out 3 or 4 steps and keep your head up. You can't. A lot of people, when they're walking in the woods, they're watching this step, but you kind of get a second I don't know what you would call it, but you just can pick out your 3 or 4 steps and your head's up looking around. I see so many people that are watching every step, and there's how many deer have stood there and watched you while you walked right
They just
by
let them go by. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's one other thing I want to mention before we ended this, and I'm sure you guys have done it. We've all done it. And it's just so embarrassing when you think about it. You get on a big buck track late in the day, and you're tracking that buck. All of a sudden it starts to get dark, so you got to take your flashlight out and look at the track to tell you're on the track. How the heck are you going to even see a deer when you got to shine your light on the track? And I've done it a couple of times and say, what? I must be out of my head, I can't.
Well, that's another thing. You track a deer right till dark. A lot of people, oh no, I got to be back to my car before dark. Why? North is still north. That's right. South is still south.
And the
Carry
day
a
woods,
flashlight.
and the day woods is the same as the night woods. You just can't see anybody.
You know what I do now? I want to be out of the. I always like to be out of the woods when it got pitch black. Yeah. I didn't care if I had to walk 5 miles down the road or trail or whatever. But I found as I got older, maybe you guys are tougher than I am. I like to get my rest. So if I'm a couple miles back in on a buck, and he's going the wrong direction, I'm not going on him till dark. I'm working my way out, so I get out at dark.
Makes sense.
Get a good supper, get my hot shower, and get to bed, and then I'm
Fresh.
I'm 100% again in the morning. Since I turned 60, I got that way a little bit more, yeah. And I can still do. I go every day pretty much, and if I want to take a day off, I do. But I feel better about it because for me, it ain't. And if I'm right in the thick of it, I mean, if I got one that he's right in front of me, I'm not going to do that. But I'm like if I've already jumped him a few times, and he's
makes sense.
Just makes sense. It just makes sense, Hal. It really does.
Like Kenny Rogers said, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah. Try to pace myself a little better. Yeah.
Well, you hit 80s. I think it's better than 60s.
I'm dreading it, to tell you the truth.
Don't dread it.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
I have more fun
Embrace it.
taking care of his grandkids than I did when I hunted, really.
I'm already realizing.
Well, almost.
Yeah, I'm realizing I'm going to end up being a little more moral support than the guy leading the charge,
Yeah, but I mean, thank God they have people like you for some of these young kids that want to learn that stuff,
I call myself the camp flunky. I make sure that the dishes are all done and food got ready for supper or whatever. So we call it the camp flunky. And boy, I fit right in there.
I've been one for years.
Oh, you did all the cooking anyways.
Always.
Well, remember when you were young, though? My God, you just couldn't wait to get out. You had to get out before daylight, and you want to be the first one out the door. I got to get out.
Oh, yeah. I would. We have to quit probably here, too, at half hour after sunset is shooting time. Yes. And, I would keep watching my watch, and I would take it to that minute and then walk out of the woods in the dark. Yeah. That's why when I was younger, I wasn't coming out of the woods until it was dark.
Well, they just started making it a half hour after sunset here in New York State. Just a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years.
What was it, sunset?
Sunset.
And I'm telling you, sometimes in the Adirondacks, I look at oh my gosh, it's half hour after sunset, and I'm using my flashlight.
Yeah.
It's dark.
It's because the way the time zone is.
Yeah.
But we're the same way, it's you can't see. By sunset, even back our way, it's legal, but you ain't going to see to shoot in the woods. You might see out on the road or
a cut
or
open
something.
field or
something.
One more short thing I would like to tell you. Like, you remember when Larry Benoit's first book came out, How to Bag the Biggest Buck in Your Life? Yeah, well, Peter Miller had written that book for Larry. Larry gave him all the information, but it was just so funny because he ran all over the place. That was what he said in the book. So anyways, for 10 years I went before I met Larry. And I'm running through the woods like a banshee. I'm telling you, I'm running after this deer. A lot of them I killed, but more of them I didn't kill. So anyways, after 10 years of chasing deer all over through the woods, I finally stop at Larry's house and I meet him. And I tell Larry, I said, boy, I really enjoyed that book that you wrote about chasing these bucks all over and stuff. I said, I've been running after them for years and years. He said, Jim, I never ran after a buck in my life. He said, Peter Miller put that in the book.
He told me that. Larry told me that when I got to know him, because I read the same thing, and I'm like, I was in the mountains. You can't run up the mountains. You just
I ran all over. Hell, let
Yeah,
me tell you,
Me
I ran
too.
all
And
over.
then I hurt my knee, and I said,
Yeah.
"That's pretty stupid."
And Larry told me that same thing. I'm like,
Isn't
yeah,
that funny? He told me.
because when he told me that after, he said half the stuff that Peter Miller wrote, I didn't say. He was trying to make Larry look bigger than life.
Oh yeah,
So-
embellishing.
So when I tried that, see, I got that. I was about probably 16. I bought it in the Outdoor Life Book Club when it first came
that's
out.
where my father got it. He bought us
Yeah,
one.
and when I headed up in 1980, I'm like, wow, I'm going to try to put this, and none of that worked. I'm like, everything I was reading about him, so I had to just start learning on my own, Yeah, but I'm glad Larry said that. That was,
To it. I didn't realize he told you that. Told you the same thing. Yeah.
and then the other books that Bryce wrote for them guys was the same way.
Was it?
Yeah, it was all, it was about the writer, not about the people, So. At least we wrote our books, you guys, and I wrote my books. It was written by us, so if anything was wrong, it's our fault, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If I ever write a book, it's going to be called "They're Just Dumb Animals," but they're not that dumb, are they?
No, they
I
outsmarted me
know it.
plenty of
Sometimes
times.
it's amazing. You think they're intelligent.
Yeah, they just
They
wear
do
it's
things.
it's the wary, and they do learn everything. Their intelligence is just the ability their instinct, to learn instinct.
Yes.
When something happens to them, they'll learn from that. They're not taught it.
And you're in their living room.
Yeah,
That's
that's right.
another thing.
Well, that's a good place to leave off. This has been great having you guys.
Enjoyed it.
Oh,
Hell.
yeah.
Two episodes. And,
Thanks
Thanks
for having us.
us.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it.
We appreciate you guys being on.
yeah, I hope the audience is I'm sure they're gonna love it, listening to the old time guys and telling stories.
A
And
lot of them are going to say, "What a bunch of bullshit that was."
yeah, there's always some that say that.
Yeah,
but-
I know it. Sometimes it's hard to tell hunting stories with the people. A lot of the people that I know that
hunt
are
today,
hunters,
yeah, that are tree
they hunt
standers.
I call them flatlanders. They hunt the southern tier, and you start to tell them stories about what you do in the Adirondacks. Then all of a sudden you start feeling, man, they're probably going to think I'm an idiot right now.
Yeah, they don't get it.
They don't get it.
But the people listening, what's going to happen, hopefully, is they'll listen to our stories and then they'll remember stories and then they'll carry their stories on to their family and friends and stuff, because that's
Good point.
that's how you learn deer hunting is through stories,
There's nothing better.
Okay, Hal, thanks so much, my friend.
All right.
Okay.
All right,
Good,
guys.
Lee. Good to
Thank
talk
you
to you
very much.
guys.
It was
All
awful
right.
nice to meet you.
All righty.
All right.
So
Enjoyed
we'll
it.
wrap this up, and once again, thank our sponsors for all they do and support them for us. Click the dinger for subscribing and notifications. And till next time, good luck on the trail.